Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the NXTGEN Racing GT3 Championship on iRacing. It's Season 1, and tonight marks round number 12 at Spa-Francorchamps. It is the season finale that we've been building up to. All roads have led to this, and my goodness, do we tonight have an absolute showdown on our hands in both the amateur and also the pro leagues. But before we get onto all that, of course, we must first introduce tonight's round and take you through the schedule. So tonight we only have the one race on the agenda, and that is the feature race, the second of our 2-hour endurance races. We had our first one at the end of the first half of the season, so at the end of round 6, it was the case that we had the race at Silverstone for 2 hours, and we take to another 2-hour race today, another super endurance race, and that is here, and we get underway at 8 o'clock tonight. So British Summer Time or UTC +1, 8 o'clock tonight, we'll be getting underway with the racing for 2 hours at the legendary Belgian circuit, and you can imagine we can expect plenty of racing over the 2 hours at a circuit which is known throughout multiple series, whether it be in the real world or the virtual world of sim racing, to cause upsets, to crown champions, and everything in between. But, of course, it'd not be possible to bring this series without a number of elements. Starting off with your commentator for tonight, and that is myself, Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all of the racing action live tonight in the season finale at the Spa circuit. On top of that as well, this series is brought to you by NXTGEN Racing in collaboration with Apex Racing Academy and Next Level Racing, our two primary sponsors, without whom it would not be possible to bring you all the racing action. Indeed, our prize pool and also helping with the organisation has come from Apex Racing Academy and Next Level Racing. And let's introduce both of them, starting off with Apex Racing Academy. So who are Apex Racing Academy, I hear you ask? Well, they're not just a setup shop. They are dedicated to making you better at iRacing with services, access to drivers and features not found on other driving schools and academies. Working with them will see you connecting with pros like never before. You can learn how to prepare for a race, build setups, improve lap times and understand how to use telemetry tools such as VRS. Every week they host multiple sessions where members can join the coaches and take advantage of group coaching sessions. And in partnership with SDK Gaming, all the data provided will be automatically synchronized directly to your PC. There's no need to go hunting for setup, replay or ghost files. The data is right there when you turn the simulator on. Interested? Then why not sign up today at apexracingacademy.com. That is apexracingac.com. And Apex Racing Academy supported us with the setups on the cars and also providing us with a good number of prizes in this series with regards to memberships at Apex Racing Academy, which our drivers are battling for. But we must come from Apex Racing Academy to Next Level Racing. Now, who is our other principal sponsor? Well, Next Level Racing, founded in 2009, is the world's leading simulation brand, revolutionising simulation with its industry-leading product range. With a clear focus on innovation and quality to meet the demanding needs of sim racers, Next Level Racers' designs and technology shall take your sim racing experience to the next level. If you want to know more about their products, be sure to head to their official website, that is nextlevelracing.com today, for further information. nextlevelracing.com. And Next Level Racing, again, providing us with a good number of our prizes in the pool, including, I believe, if I remember correctly, the prize for the most improved driver over the season. Of course, we won't be announcing the most improved driver over the season tonight because we need to analyse 12 rounds worth of footage, and that's going to take a little bit longer time, particularly analysing the 2-hour super endurance races, but you'll be expecting an announcement on that within the coming weeks following tonight. But thank you once again to our principal sponsors who've been with us all the way since the start of the series. We've been very happy to have them on board, very grateful to have them on board, and now we must go from talking about our sponsors to taking a brief look to the future. Now, what do we mean by this? Well, Season 1 has been so popular that we will be coming back by popular demand for Season 2, and that's going to be starting on the 17th of November. So if you're tuning in right now and thinking to yourself, how can I get out on the circuit racing with these guys? Do I have to be a pro? Do I have to be an am? Well, we're going to give you a quick overview now and explore this in a little bit more detail following the end of tonight's racing programme. But the short story, 12 more rounds in Season 2, so it's another 12-round series. Same times, I'm running on Wednesdays, and it's an 8 PM British Summer Time, or eventually back to GMT, so Greenwich Mean Time start, and we are going to have 3 categories. The pros, the pro-ams, and the ams are separated based on overall pace in test racing, and also iRacing, and there will be prizes and trophies up for grabs, and well, the only thing you've got to put forward is your name, but also a £20 entry fee. That's £20 for 12 rounds. And when you think about it, that's a calendar of approximately 22 races. So in the end, it's less than £1 a race. Interested? Well, stay tuned for later on when we'll be telling you how you can potentially sign up. And indeed, demand is so great already that we've almost filled, if we have not already filled, one lobby, and we are looking for another lobby of 60 drivers, and we're almost halfway there to fill up a second lobby. And if you are interested, be sure to let us know, and we'll tell you more about how you can potentially sign up later on tonight. But coming away then from what is looking ahead to the Season 2, coming back to Season 1, let's take you through the standings. So I'm going into tonight after 11 rounds, with the last round being at Nürburgring, which was a tumultuous round, particularly in the AM class, but also in the pro class to an extent. What we can see here is that Billy Fletcher is still leading the championship after a dominant display at the Nürburgring circuit, with wins in both the sprint race and also the feature race, plus also the fastest lap in both races as well. 55 points in each race, amounted to 110 points added to his tally, taking up to 654 points. And remember, these point scores take account the 1 or 2 drop scores over the course of the season. So these are the accurate points, and whatever our drive score tonight will be added to these points come the end of it. We will not be having any more drop scores, so everything is on the line tonight at Spa. And you can see that in P2 in the pro category, Matt Caruana on 592 points, with a bit of a difficult time at the Nürburgring circuit, losing out when he could have really tightened, if not overtaken, Billy Fletcher for the lead and had the initiative tonight. It is Fletcher who holds the initiative by a points total, which is 62 higher than Caruana. So tonight, the overall situation is that Fletcher, if he finishes 2 places or closer to Caruana, so if Caruana's to win, so long as Fletcher finishes 3rd or higher, Fletcher will take the championship. Because remember, tonight is double points. We only have the one race, and we'll come on to that more in the rules and regulations. But that means if Caruana was to finish 2nd, Fletcher only has to finish 4th, etc, etc. Fletcher has to finish 2 places or closer behind Caruana to take the title in the Pro Championship. Meanwhile, further down the field, we can see Harry Melvin, whilst he wasn't able to score any points at Nürburgring, once again holding on to that P3 in the standings on 375 points. And there is the outside chance that Kenny Herriman's pipping him to P3, but we reckon that the contest for the top spot is going to be between Fletcher and Caruana. But you never know what Herriman's may be able to do. A very fast driver in his own right. Can the P4 driver get himself into the top 3 come the end of tonight? Further down, we can see very close as well, Austin Hereford charging after Kenny Herriman's right now. The 2 drivers only separated by 12 points, so we do have that battle for P4 on the horizon today between Herriman's and Hereford. And looking further down, Jean-Louis Deschamps, who's moved up there to P6 in the pro stands on 211 points, 11 clear of Paul King, and he'll be looking to cement that P6 in the standings today, with Paul King on 200 points, 25 clear of Jaco Boshoff, and I do believe Boshoff, the South African, will be returning tonight once again for the final round of the season. Can he potentially spring a late surprise, the Ignium Racing driver? Bobby Thompson there as well in P9, 165 points. We haven't seen Thompson recently, I believe due to real life racing escapades, which he's been doing very well at, that I'm hearing on the radio. But it is the case that Thompson, I do not think is going to be taking part tonight, so I think it's more about the case, can Ben Hicks jump him to P9 when the dust settles at the circuit, or can Ben Hicks even get ahead of Boshoff come the end? We'll wait and see. The gap between Hicks and Boshoff, of course, only 22 points. Outside our top 10, however, our P10 driver, Ben Hicks, has to be aware of the fact that he has got Ed Lack chasing after him. Lack now only 5 points off of a top 10 finish come the end of the championship. And Lack has been one of those drivers who has been very fast, but has been plagued with bad luck and experienced a number of incidents. Can he put those incidents and the bad luck to bed and finally wrap up the season on an ultimate high? We'll have to wait and see. Further down, we can see Jeremy DeBova with only 6 points in the sprint race, was not able to consolidate his position. In fact, has fallen further behind Ed Lack. The gap between the two drivers now, 100, well, not 100, my apologies, 10 points, 138 to 148. And Tony Verschaft there in P13 with a splendid job in the round number 11 at Nürburgring, able to get up to 111 points. Could we see him with an outside shot of getting into the top 10 come the end of tonight? I think it's quite unlikely, but we could see him jump Jeremy Debova and also Ed Lack come the checkered flag, but we'll have to wait and find out. Andrew Lovesey and DDD Vlaming there, just a little bit behind Verschaft on 98 and 84 points respectively. And as we look further down the order there, we can see Robert de Sunik with another pair of points finishes at the Nürburgring on 44 points and trying to close up to Stephen Norman and Colin Martin. Can he jump them come at the end of tonight? And Kevin van der Silk as well, no points on the board last time at the Nürburgring. Can he make a late charge and take the fight to de Sunik? Meanwhile, outside of our top 20 in the pro category, we can see a number of drivers who, not able to get points last time at the Nürburgring, will be looking to try and end their season on a high by getting some critical points. And most importantly there, the likes of Bastian de Silva and also Ben Henderson in P25 and P26, both respectively on 17 and 3 points. And de Silva would love to get one more point at least to jump ahead of Dirkie Satcher. But will he be able to? We'll wait and find out. Now, coming away from the pros, that's just the pro standings. Now let's come on to the amateur league standings. And you can see here, we have got a three-way title fight that has to be settled tonight at Spa. George Bland is currently your championship leader on count back alone on 463 points. He's got the same number of points as Alexander Betak. But the difference is, on result count back, George Bland is leading. And that is the only difference, with Betak having a phenomenal pair of results at the Nürburgring, 15 points in the sprint race and 17 points in the feature race, versus Bland, who had a disaster at the Nürburgring with the car really struggling at the turn 8 hairpin, the MP4 12C McLaren not working well at the circuit, and as a result it couldn't be closer. But we can't just focus on those two. We have to also focus on the gentleman known as Olly Waind, who in P3 only 7 points off of the two championship leaders. He is also in contention here for the championship win. If he can outscore the pair of them tonight, he will be crowned champion. And now there is a little bit of a variance with regards to if they all finish quite low in the points as to who takes home the championship, but the general rule will be if Waind finishes ahead of Betak and Bland, he will take the crown so long as it's within the top 5 positions approximately of the amateur league drivers. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out after Waind picking up the 23 points over the course of the racing at Nürburgring has given himself that good opportunity to take the crown tonight. Outside of the hunt for the championship win in the Amateur League, we can see Matthew Addy there on 351 points, and he'll be looking to complete tonight with a good point score, which will keep him safe from Mikkel Andreasen, who unfortunately, due to a number of incidents in recent races and some difficulty, has found himself falling out of contention for that potential win in the championship, but still does have an outside chance of taking the fight to Matthew Addy come the end of the racing tonight. Looking further down there, we can see a Nigel Stott, currently what is 14 points safe, 15 points safe. Do maths again, 16 points safe. You can tell here that we didn't do very well in mathematics at school. We can see there that Kurt van Hohenacker, 16 points away from Nigel Stott, and will be chasing after Stott and trying to get into P6 come the end of the racing tonight in those standings. And Jochen Seeger as well, the driver who really did have a difficult time at both Canada in round number 10 at Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve and also at the Nürburgring last time out in round number 11. He'll be looking to get some more points on the board to try and close down the gap to Van Hohenacker and Stott and get himself into P6 come the end of the racing. Arjan Bakker there has got a 6-point advantage in P9 over Navarro Debova, who has recently promoted himself into the top 10. Can those two drivers hold on to their top 10 positions come the end of tonight? Or will it be the case as we look outside our top 10? Will we see Matthew Owens make a late charge after what has been a difficult second half to the season, particularly in the last 3 races where he's been going through a major transitional period switching to the Lamborghini Huracan? Can Matthew Owens creep into that top 10 at the expense of Bakker or Navarro Debova? We will wait and see. Prouton there in P12, really the best of the rest there on 117 points, and can he hold off Mark Baker with that very strong performance in the second race, in the feature race, albeit not to undervalue Prouting's phenomenal performance at the Nürburgring. You can imagine that Prouting will be wary of the fact that he has got Baker trying to chase on his heels, albeit Prouting has got ahead of Baker come round number 11. Outside of those two, Darren Doherty on 94 points, 8 ahead right now of Jürgen Nocker. Can he hold on to P14? And looking further down there, we can see Mark Sykes, who'll be looking to end the season on a high. Currently P18, not picking up any points last time out, with only 63 points to his name. Unfortunately, we won't be seeing Tom Porter take to the circuit tonight, our P19 driver in the AM League on 34 points. So that could be an opportunity for Tom Delaney to get an extra couple of points to get ahead of Porter. And then outside our top 20 there, we can see Jack Wyborn, Gareth Mills, Chris Keenan, Arjun Kregel and Aaron Thompson, who will be looking to get 1 or 2 more points to their name come the end of tonight to try and just get themselves ahead of their peers and perhaps creep into that top 20 right at the end of the season. Now, whilst we do have 10 minutes to go before we get underway with the racing, let's take a look at the circuit. We come away from our standings to the circuit. So we're at Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps in Stavelot, Belgium tonight. An infamous circuit throughout the ages, raced on by Formula 1, GT World Challenge, you name it, the series has most likely raced at this circuit in some form or the other. And the circuit has not changed too much over the course of time. But one thing I can tell you for certain, as shown by this image provided by simracingwiki.com, who we're very grateful for providing us with all of our iRacing circuit maps, is that this circuit will push a driver to the limit with a whole mixture of corners, whether it's the low speed, hard hairpin apex of La Source at turn 1, you've got the flowing sequence of corners at turns 3 through to 5, which is Eau Rouge and Radion, or you've got the long run down the Kemmel straight up towards Les Combes. Les Combes consisting of turns 7, 8 and 9. We're running with the 21 corner convention here rather than the 19 that you're seeing on screen. You've also got the medium speed apex corners and the sweepers such as Pouhon Corner at turn number 12. You've also got the Fangers chicane at turns 13 and 14. We've got Stavelot 1 and Stavelot 2, also known as Stavelot and Coeur de Paul Ferrier, of turns number 16 and 17, and Blanchimont and the bus stop chicane. All infamous corners, all very different challenges, and as you can now see from this reference map provided to us by Matt Caruana, our P2 man in the Pro Championship, as he goes into La Source here, heavy braking down to first gear. It is one challenge to commend every driver for taking part in. So as he comes out of La Source and makes his way through the right hand kink here of turn 2, which is the old pit lane entry, he now makes his way across the old pit lane start line here and heads up towards Eau Rouge and Radion as he goes through turn 3, flat out through 3, lifting off through 4 before stamping back on the throttle on the exit, the apex of 5, and as he makes his way now up around onto the Kemmel straight through the right hander of 6 and down towards Les Combes. He takes a brief breather right now as he heads up towards top gear in the Lamborghini Huracan, building it up through the gears, in fact in the Audi, I should say, the Audi Sport he switched to recently, as he now comes down to turn number 7 into Les Combes, heavy on the brakes here, down to third gear, switching from right into left before getting ready for the sweeper at turn 9, just lifting off the throttle before feeding the car turning and then stamping back on the throttle to head down towards Rivage Corner here. Down into turn 10, a very long corner, Rivage, a very gradual corner where you've got to be patient and go into second gear and wait to get on the throttle, and as he exits into No Name Corner, recently changed to X as he comes through turn number 11 and runs a bit wide there using the full runoff area, and now down towards Pouhon Corner. Turn number 12 here, 2 apexes, a downhill double apex corner. He goes into the corner in 4th gear here, full of confidence, lifting off the throttle and then getting on the throttle as soon as he feels the car biting on the exit of the first apex, as he makes his way down, upshift into 5th gear, now into the Fangers chicane, turns 13 and 14, coming through in 3rd gear here, down to 3rd gear and keeping it nice and tight to each of the apexes, and you can see the rhythm of the car here, not letting the rear end come out too aggressively, but nice rotation through before coming into Stavelot 1, heavy on the brakes into turn 15 as he makes his way through in what is 3rd gear, now building up the speed here as he goes through Stavelot 2, upshift into 4th to help rotate the car through and makes his way out of Stavelot 2, and now it's the long run up towards Blanchimont Corner. Building his way up through the gears once again for perhaps one of the most challenging corners on the circuit. If Eau Rouge and Radion wasn't enough, going through the left-hand kink before into Blanchimont now, and in 6th gear here we'll see a brief lift off the throttle, and then he'll make his way back onto full throttle as he clears the corner and heads down towards the bus stop chicane. Turns 20 and 21 here, and as he comes all the way down to 1st gear under heavy braking, you can see absolutely attacking the apexes with a ruthless aggression and crossing the timing line. A fantastic lap by Matt Caruana, and we can expect plenty from him tonight. But from the reference lap, we now come on to the rules, and we've got a good number of rule changes tonight, of course, because this is a super endurance round, and let's take you through all of those rules. So firstly, setup. Our drivers will be running the iRacing medium downforce setup for tonight's races. So we're staying with that standard approach of using those standard iRacing downforce setups. We're running the medium one tonight, which is that middle ground between a significant amount of downforce and low downforce. And it will be the case that the cars will be right in that middle ground in terms of you'll feel the downforce through some of the corners, but not through all the medium speed sweepers as such. In general, however, there's only one race tonight, as we said time and time again, that 120-minute super endurance race, or the 2-hour race. There is no qualifying session, and this is, of course, a major contributing factor to how we're going to be organising the grid. Because if there's no qualifying session, how do we set our grid? Well, our drivers will be lining up on the grid in reverse championship order, segregated by the respective leagues. So that means all the pros will start together at the front, but they will be in reverse championship order. So you can imagine our championship leaders of Fletcher and Caruana will be at the back of the pros, whereas the guys right at the bottom will be at the front, and then we will have the AM League behind them, and a similar situation where we'll have our lowest scoring guys at the front of the AM Pack, and then we'll have our championship contenders, and that is of course Bland, Betak and Waind starting right at the rear. On top of that as well, we are asking that the AM League starts approximately 2 seconds behind the Pro League, and this is for the purposes of safety because we are going to have multiple drivers, tons of drivers racing up into Rouge and Radion come the opening lap, and if there is an incident, say the pros go through there and there's a major incident and then the AMs come through, they can have the yellow flag warning as they're making their way up into the corner, and perhaps that will help prevent the incident from kicking off a domino effect. Of course, we're not wishing an incident on anyone, but it will be spectacular if something does go wrong through Rouge and Radion onto the Kimmel Straight. Coming on to the race itself, our drivers' starting fuel loads will still be restricted to 75% for the start of the race, so that means our drivers will have to take on fuel when they make their pit stops, and given the length of this race, there will be 2 mandatory stops which require drivers to take on fuel, and on top of that, our drivers must change all 4 tyres on the car at least once. So they must change the front left, the front right, the rear right and the rear left once. If they want to do it more than once they can, but all 4 tyres must undergo a change at some points. They've got to take on fuel and they've got to change all 4 tyres over the course of 2 mandatory pit stops. Each driver will also have 2 fast repairs, and also remember this race is worth double points excluding the fastest lap. So that means up for grabs tonight in each league is 105 points. We normally have the 50 points for the win in say a sprint or a feature, so that doubles to 100, and it's 5 points for the fastest lap. And that, ladies and gentlemen, are the rule changes for tonight as we just check in with our stewards very quickly. And we are not hearing anything from our stewards with regards to any delays to the proceedings. So I believe we are good to go. And as a result, we now head back to the live circuit for you. And as we remove the race information screen, we can see we have only got 2.5 minutes to go before we are due to get racing. And whilst we are waiting to get racing, I should say, we're going to check in with you guys and girls in the chat. We've got plenty of you, of course, tuning in, and let's say hello to you all. And if you are tuning in right now and you haven't said anything in the chat, whether you are on Facebook, Twitter or YouTube, and I should have said earlier, this broadcast is being brought to you on the official Next Gen Racing YouTube, the official Next Gen Racing Facebook group, and also on my own personal Twitch channel, that's TX141 on Twitch. If you're on any of those media, do not be shy, feel free to say hi if you have access to the chat functionality, because we would love to hear from you as we do continue to look around the circuit right now. And we can see Jeremy Deb over here making his way on through up towards what is Blanchimont corner here as he charges through the left-hander and has decided to switch to the Audi R8 for the season conclusion, and I believe that may be in preparation for season 2, the McChange by DV driver there making his way on through the corner. But we can see that we've got Katie Eames in the Facebook chat saying looking forward to a cracking 2 hours of racing, and well, that's very nice of you to say, Katie. Before you start, Paul, thank you for making this Wednesday night league freaking awesome, dude. By far one of the best commentators out there. Well, I really do appreciate it, and don't forget to breathe. I'll try not to forget over the course of the 2 hours, but I may need reminding. We've got No Mercy CYNL there. Sorry, No Mercy NL there. I can't even read properly today. On the YouTube channel saying good luck for the last round, and thanks Next Gen and Paul for this. See you next season on track. We'll be happy to have you out on circuit. No Mercy next season. That'll be absolutely fantastic. We've also got Matt Emmons in the Facebook chat saying hello, and Emmons of course will be racing tonight, and I believe Emmons right now is currently parked in, well no, he's not parked in the pits, he's out on circuit. Here is Matt Emmons, the Luxim with M&V Esports driver, making his way down towards Lake On. And good luck to Matt and to all of our drivers, of course. We've got Elwin Sykes as well in the Facebook chat saying we're good to go for the checkered flag. Great to hear from you, Elwin, and I think you're looking forward to the racing, and I would presume you're perhaps cheering on your fellow family member of Mark Sykes tonight, but I'm sure you'll be able to tell me in the chat if you're cheering on for anybody else, or if you are definitely cheering on for Mark Sykes. And with half a minute to go, we've also got Sobergred there saying go Mikkel, and he is referring to, of course, Mikkel Andreasen, the slow and steady racing driver there, the Dane who'll be looking to give it his very best in the 696 car. And we've also got Lee Horn in the Facebook chat saying hey guys. Lee Horn, of course, a favourite within the Next Gen Racing community, an absolutely fantastic chap, and definitely if you are able to talk to him in the Facebook chat, I'm sure he would be very happy to talk to you as well. He'll be looking forward to the racing. But here we go then, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of the warm-up session for all of our drivers as the Oisin Hereford here making his way through Rouge and Radion, committed in the BMW M4. But the timer for the final practice session has concluded. It is time for us to get racing. As we see, the checkered flag has come out on the practice session, and now everybody will be raring to go. And unfortunately, we are seeing there in the YouTube chat, DD Vlaming confirming he's not able to make it to the race tonight due to technical issues. That's very unfortunate, but see you next season. D Vlaming, you're a fantastic driver in Season 1. We look forward to seeing more of you in Season 2. But we're now looking away from the chat to our live screens. Let's take you through then how our grid will line up, at least the first 6 rows. So we can see here, our pros will be starting off with Jamie Dory at the front of the field, the NXTGEN Racing with Barracuda Motorsport. We've got Dirt Bounce alongside him, and then in P3 and P4, Robert De Sunic and Colin Martin, Ben Faines and Tony Verschaff line up on the 3rd row, Jeremy DeBova and Ben Hicks on the 4th row, Jean-Louis Deschamps and Austin Hereford on the 5th row, and then we've got Matt Caruana and Billy Fletcher there lining up on the 6th row. We've got quite a light pro field today, it must be said, and as a result, we've got 12 pro drivers taken to the circuit, and then the best part is I think Rick Jansen is starting from the pit lane, and then we've got 21 AM drivers taking part, and a good number of those deciding to start from the pit lane as well. I think Jürgen Nocker, we've also got Rishang, they will be starting from the pit lane. But here we go then, ladies and gentlemen, as we now get underway with the double file rolling start, and it will be for Jamie Dory to take us away here as we make our way down towards bus stop. And I believe the green will be at the Formula 1 starting line. It will not be at the GT World Challenge starting line. It will be as they come out of the bus stop chicane as they head on down, and this is going to be a very close race, you can imagine, as they make their way on through. And let's wait and see how it all plays out. Of course, this race for most drivers is critical in some form or another as they all come charging down. And we can see a bit further back right now that we do have our AMs who are spacing out with what is Arjan Kregel and Chris Keenan leading their field away 2 seconds behind. But we look up to Jamie Dory right now in the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo as we get ready to go racing. And there we go, we have the, well, not the green quite yet, ladies and gentlemen, we're still waiting. And it is the GT Challenge line in. My apologies, I've just had that whispered in my ear. So we'll be going shortly coming out of turn 2 as we're about to make our way towards Arouge and Radion. And that will be the safer start, I believe. And there's the green, ladies and gentlemen. We are go for 2 hours of racing in the season finale of the GT3 Championship. And immediately our pros going on the offensive there, as we can see Tony Verschaff trying to squeeze his way into the battle. But it looks as though they're Robert De Sunic holding position, as behind we've seen Colin Martin making a brave move versus Ben Faines. Meanwhile, in the AM League, we can see that our drivers here spacing out a little bit. And it looks as though Arjan Kregel's had the better run, as Gareth Mills makes an early move for the lead of the AM League. Mills getting the move on early as they make their way down towards what is Lecom. And we can see, meanwhile, at the head of the pack here is Jamie Dory still leading, but Robert De Sunic has gained a position, as I believe we have had a slight incident a little bit further down, although I am for confirmation. But it looks as though Colin Martin has been attacked by Ben Faines here. Martin's trying to make the move, and Ben Hicks is falling down the order like a stone right now. I'm not sure what's happened to Ben Hicks, but there's been a major incident. We look a little bit further back, and we can see that right now it is George Bland who is on the offensive and trying to make the early gains, but he has got Betak ahead of him right now, and he cannot find a way through to the time being, as we see Van Hernacker tucked in behind. But Gareth Mills with a very strong start there. You can see the Mills machine, the GM Racing machine, as they make their way down towards Pulon Corner. And looking a little bit further back, I can tell you that we have got also Ooster, who's here making his way down the Switchback Motorsport Racing driver, as he comes down the hill through turn number 12, coming down through Pulon Corner, and everybody making their way through so far. And I do think that it's Colin, hold on a second, is that Colin Martinoff? That is Colin Martinoff at Pulon Corner. I'm not sure what's happened to Colin Martin, but he's dropped all the way down the field here and finds himself well inside the midfield here of the Angry, as we've got a car locking up the brakes. And I think that's Jochen Seeger who's just made an error, and that is indeed Jochen Seeger who's run wide out of Fange's chicane. And there's what is a Reese Young, no, that's not Reese Young, I'm not sure where that is behind, but getting very close to back him is a driver as they make their way on through here. And let's take a look back up front, as we can see they come through Blanchimont Corner, and it's Jamie Dory, our leader in the pro category and overall, who's trying to hold off Robert De Sunic, but De Sunic going to the outside here down to bus stop. Very early charge from De Sunic. He knows he can make the early gains and try and break away from the field, but he's not able to. So after one lap then, it is Jamie Dory who's holding on to the lead, having started as our race leader. Behind him is Robert De Sunic in P2, Tony Verschaft in P3, but we wait going down the order as we see De Sunic throwing a feint into Source, but he can't find a way through. Then we've got Ben Faines in P4, holding off Dirt Bounce right now in P5. Then we've got Jeremy DeBover in P6, followed by Jean-Louis Deschamps in P7, Matt Caruana in P8, and Billy Fletcher just behind him. The two Luxim 24 esports drivers right now just staying in formation. And Matt Caruana, of course, in the Audi R8, and we've got Billy Fletcher in the Huracan, and we can see the two drivers inseparable right now. And Øystein Herford in P10 in the pros. Meanwhile, our top 10 in the AMs as it currently stands. Gareth Mills leading and making the breakaway here from Chris Keenan by 7/10 over the course of the first lap. And then we've got Matthew Prouting in P3 for the AMs, followed by Morten Ooster, who's here in P4. Then Arjen Kregel in P5. Then we've got Stefan Gamble Rasmussen in P6, followed by Mark Baker in P7. And Mark Sykes making a good start in P8 there in the AMs. Then we've got Navarro Dabova in P9 and Mikel Andreas in P10 as behind. We can see Matt Emmons here feeding the pressure from what is Nigel Stock, but in the end taking the position around the outside of Stock into La Source and doing a very, not La Source, into Lecom we should say, and doing a very confident job of it and making his way further up the field. I think Emmons is going on the charge, whereas Stock right now might be playing things a little bit more conservatively, as I am hearing that Colin Martin has jumped to the pits with damage to the car as all of our drivers make their way now down through Rivage Corner and into Ix as they come through turn number 11 and head up towards Pouhon once again. And we can see just ahead right now that Navarro Dabova under some pressure here to come through as the challenge driver makes his way down the hill, and in fact bringing out a new car today, bringing out the Lamborghini Huracan and getting past what was Mark Sykes. And I think we've had a major instant further down. Oh goodness, we've got a lot of smoke at Pouhon Corner. What on earth has happened here? Well, this was only moments ago, and that is Matt Emmons in the Huracan. As we can see, there is a Ferrari going wayward, and it looks as though Emmons has just got it wrong into Pouhon Corner, and Nigel Stock has had an incident. I think that was Mark Sykes who had the spin, and Nigel Stock having to take evasive action. We'll just look at that again. That was Mark Sykes who took to the grass and had the spin, I believe, and then that Stock just taking evasive action, and in the end, drifting out of Pouhon Corner, and the car giving way and hitting into the tyre barrier. A very unfortunate start for those three drivers as they now make their way around, and we can see here Stock has now got Matt Emmons attacking him once again as they make their way up towards Blanchimont here. Two wounded cars, of course, albeit for Stock it's damage to the rear of the car. For Emmons it is the case, he's flat spotted the tyres as they make their way up in towards what is Blanchimont, and side by side through there, the bravery shown between those two, but Emmons not able to find a way round despite the Huracan's straight line speed and ability to rotate through the corners more naturally compared to the front engine rear wheel drive BMW, but they stay as they are as they now make their way through. And Mark Sykes has jumped to the pits, I've heard, as has Ben Hicks, and we have had some incidents earlier in the race which we'll take a look back shortly, but what I can tell you with the battle further down here, we do have a growing battle as it looks like Robert Desunet and Tony Verschaft are finding their way past Jamie Dory here, and Ben Faines doing the same as well, and it looks as though we have got what is Jamie Dory, they're just dropping down like a stone. And in fact I think Dory just moving out of the way and recognising that perhaps he's not going to be able to fight those guys as he falls down, as we see Caruana right now, well he's got ahead of Jeremy DeBova, and he's now got DeBova between himself and Fletcher, but it's still at two places. So of course if the race was to finish right now, Billy Fletcher would still be crowned champion, we believe, as they make their way through the right-hander here of what is Rivage Corner, turn 10, and heading up towards Ix at 11. Now, further down the pack in terms of the battles within the pros, we can see Øystein Herford here, the last of our top 10 in terms of top 10 pros and top 10 overall, and he's chasing after Jean-Louis Deschamps here. But we know with the Norwegian, he has a habit of racing to a very different way compared to others. He's very conservative, and then when he needs to, he really goes on the offensive. I think Herford here is being quite conservative and reserved in his approach. He chased after Jean-Louis Deschamps, and you can imagine the Full Sem Racing driver will find a way to go on the offensive later in the race, as we are hearing that George Bland, oh goodness me, and George Bland with a spin at Pouhon Corner. What's happened to George Bland? So this was coming down the hill into what was Pouhon Corner. Does the rear end just go much like what happened to Emmons? It does indeed. The rear just completely snapped on Bland, and that is critical in the championship. Bland, of course, has got ample time to get back into the fighting, but those tyres will definitely have a major flat spot on them across all four corners of the car. And now he is behind Jürgen Nocker, who has brought today the Audi R8, and I think a lot of drivers switching cars in preparation for the season ahead. But we can see Nocker here making that car change and trying to make it work as he tries to break away from George Bland, as we get a brief lag there, and we can now look back up the field and we can see it's Matt Emmons who's trying to go around the outside of Nigel Stock into Blanchimont, and this time he's got the overrun before they make the apex to turn. Now, we've got cars crashed out there on the corner, and that looks like that's Van Hohenacker. Now what on earth has happened here? That's Arjen Kregel and Van Hohenacker. So as they were making their way up into the corner, it looks as though Kregel is really struggling for the corner, a wounded car, and it looks as though Van Hohenacker just not anticipating Kregel to be going so slowly, and as a result clipping into the back of him and sending both drivers there into the exit wall, and that is a disaster for the pair of them. And indeed, within the opening 7 minutes, we have had a huge amount of drama, particularly in the AMs, but there's also been a little bit in the pros as we look back up towards our leaders right now, and I can tell you that our top three overall and in the pro category for Schaft, Sunik and Fanes are having their own little battle here for the lead very early on, and you can see it's the BMW M4 of Tony Verschaff from Team Racing Netherlands who right now is holding off the Porsche train of De Sunik and Fanes. They've got Dirt Bounce who's 1.5 seconds back. You can see the Mercedes driver in the rear of your picture, and as they make their way out of what is X corner down towards Pouhon, you can see it is the case that right now bouncing a little bit of a no man's land and wants to catch up further down, and you can see that Jamie Dory under pressure here from Caruana, and Caruana will be looking for a way through as the Barracuda Motorsport Next Gen Racing driver of Dory tries to hold off the fast charging Caruana here as they come up into Vanges, and as they make their way up into 13. Remember, for Caruana, he needs to take every position and put as many cars between himself and Fletcher in order to have a chance of taking the championship right now. So the fact that he's got Fletcher right behind him, Fletcher has passed Weinstein Herford and Jeremy DeBova, it is the case that for Caruana this will not do right now. Now when I was catching up with both drivers, what Fletcher was saying to me was just keep it on the Black Island, in terms of keep it on the tarmac. That's all he wanted to do, whereas Caruana said all he was going for today was the win and seeing how it would play off, and he's going to just try and keep ahead of Fletcher as well as they make their way up into Blanchimont corner here, and you can see Caruana with a brave move to the inside there versus Dory, and Dory falling down a place, but he looks to come back here into bus stop, but he's not got it on the brakes as we see Fletcher tucking behind here. And remember, for Fletcher has control of this race in terms of he just needs to be patient. He doesn't need to do anything too dramatic. He just needs to stay behind Caruana. Of course, his teammate, they will have no love lost between them out on circuit, but you can imagine that's exactly what he's going to do as a minimum. As further down, we can see as they come onto their fifth tour of the circuit, it is Gareth Mills who is still leading the AM class right now, and the GM Racing driver doing a good job as it currently stands, keeping it, chasing after Jeremy DeBova, keeping a little bit of pressure on the pro, but we can see behind there we've got Chris Keenan and Jean-Louis Deschamps, who as they come out of the source and head through two, battling side by side here. Now I think Keenan's going to hold the lead line here into Rouge. Will it be the case? No, it looks like Deschamps comes on through, and remember Deschamps is a pro driver there who's fallen behind these guys, and as they make their way up through Rouge and Radion, we can see Deschamps being given the position back by Keenan. As we see Fletcher here going for the move versus Jamie Dory, and he's got the move done and is now up into P6. So chasing after Caruana and using Caruana as his pace car, and looking at back then, well, before we look back, we can see Dirt Bounce under pressure there from Caruana, and Caruana trying to find a way through into Rivage corner, but not able to do so right now. But you can imagine as they come up into X, he'll be getting ready to make the lunge into Pouhon if he's close enough, but he'll be very brave to do so. As we ride on board here with the Audi driver, he's looking for it into Pouhon corner, he goes on the inside, and as he makes his way through there, not the place I would have gone for it personally, but that's the reason why Caruana is considered to be a pro. The fact he will go for the moves where others will not, and he's been able to pull it off there. He's up into P4, and that's a Fletcher to follow through as rapidly as possible, as we see Jamie Dory getting a little bit closer to the back of Fletcher. Fletcher struggling right now to get the pace deployed, as I think he feels he's got more pace through Vanges compared to Bounce, and Bounce of course has his right to defend here. Bounce doesn't have to move out of the way for these guys. They're all on the same lap, they're battling for position, but you can see Fletcher having a little bit of a bump there on the apex curve of Stablo 2, and that's sent him wide. That will most likely give him a track limits caution as they make their way towards Blanchimont, and you can see Dory looking for the move here. They're going to almost make it 3 wide, and Dory on the inside here, and it's Fletcher who tries to go around the outside, but they all settle back into formation here, and this is very risky stuff for Fletcher because he will not want to be involved in an incident of any sort. As he looks at a move here down into bus stop, he makes the lunge on the brakes, Bounce sees him there, and as they come through the second part of the bus stop chicane through turn 21, Fletcher gets on the throttle on the outside line. He's able to out-drag the Mercedes out the corner. Now as they come up towards turn number 1 into La Source, will we see a 3 wide situation? It looks as though we're going 3 wide here, ladies and gentlemen, as they come down, but in the end it is Dory who makes his way through on the inside versus Bounce, and I think this will buy Fletcher the time he needs to break away. To be fair to Dory, being very smart to look for the opportunity to attack both of them, but not able to gain in the end, but giving himself the ability to get right up to the back of Dirt Bounce as they make their way through Rouge and Radion once again here. 12 minutes of racing complete come the end of the Kimmel Straight, and for these guys right now, they're getting very fighty and feisty indeed already as they head on to the run down towards Lake Com. Now behind them, of course, Gareth Mills still holding on to that P10 position, and Jean-Louis Deschamps, who earlier on fell down behind him. You're probably wondering what happened to the Porsche driver from the Pro League. Let's show you what happened. So this was earlier before he fell behind Mark Baker and Chris Keenan coming through Fange's chicane, and as he came out of the second part, ran wide, put the rear right-hand tyre on to the gravel and straight into the wall there. Very painful whack, and as a result it is the case that Deschamps rejoined and dropped the places and is now going racing once again and trying to make a recovery out of this. But further down the order, I can tell you that right now one of our 3 championship contenders in the AM League, George Bland, he's got it all to do, because remember, George Bland was one of our joint leaders, but the leader on countback, and he is currently P25, which is P15 in the AM class, and as he makes his way up towards what is turn number 10 right now, he's trying to get past Nigel Stock, and Stock, to be fair, not making it easy for Bland right now as they make their way down towards X corner. Of course, they are right to battle here, and Stock will want to battle versus Bland. Of course, he'll want to try and stay ahead as much as he possibly can, but meanwhile, what about Bland's rivals? Well, as they make their way down towards Paul, and there doesn't look to be an attempt here at a move. Well, I can tell you, Bland's rivals right now of Betak, the Danish is going through Fange's chicane, and he is currently P14 overall. That translates into P4 in the AM class right now, and he is ahead of Olly Waind. So if it was to finish right now, Betak and Waind, of course, literally nose to tail almost, albeit about 8 tenths separating the two of them. But if it was to finish as it is right now, it would be Betak who takes the win, it would be Waind who takes P2, and it would be Bland who takes P3 in the championship. And that's how quickly it can turn. The switchback motorsport driver here at Betak will know that Bland is very far down the order right now. He will know that all he needs to do is now manage this race and not make any silly mistakes to invite the man behind him right now, Olly Waind, into that championship fight. The MMB Esports driver, however, would have something to say about that, of course, given the fact that he would love to have that opportunity to take the win come the final race, but we will wait to see. We are 14 minutes in right now, and we have got plenty of racing to go. And a bit further down there, one driver, of course, who we're keeping our eyes on is Matthew Prouting after his phenomenal performance at the Nürburgring. Will he be able to find his way further up the order today? Well, that looks quite a heavily wounded BMW, I must say. It looks as though the front right tyre in particular is starting to come away from the wheel arching. Indeed, the aerodynamics have been pushed in on that front bumper quite a bit as he makes his way up towards the Origin Radeon. But what we are hearing a bit further up the road is Jamie Dory battling with dirt bounce here, and he's made the move on bounce into Lacombe as they come on through turn number 8 and up into 9. And how did that all happen, you ask? Well, let's take a look back in a second. Let's just wait and see if bounce looks at a return move here. These two rivals, of course, and as they come down to turn 11, no move there from bounce. Just a sign of a feint, but it wasn't enough in the end as they make their way on down the hill. Let's take a look back. So here it was the case that Dory had the slipstream and the run onto the Kimmel Straight. It was on the inside. I think it's your traditional pass into Lacombe, up the inside there, and Bounce just politely waiting to come back at him through 8 and into 9. And looking a bit further back, this was Betak versus Keenan only moments ago for P3 in the AM class. And as they were making their way down, you can see Keenan on the right there in the yellow BMW, Betak on the left-hand side in the switchback motorsport Audi. And as they come up into Lacombe, a similar style of pass. But it looks though Keenan being quite conservative there, I must say, and taking it very gently, as we're hearing that Nigel Stock has had a major incident, and Stock has just returned as Matt Emmons has jumped to the pits. Now, what has happened to Matt Emmons and Nigel Stock? Now, this was only moments ago, starting with Emmons here. Now, that does look as though ahead. That is Stock coming down into turn number 11. Well, that's not Stock in back, that's a different car. So, Emmons lost it under braking through Rivage Corner as he literally parked the car. Stock giving him a tap on the front right-hand side there. Very unfortunate for both drivers, and Emmons having to jump to the pit, I think, with front suspension damage. Of course, our drivers do have 2 fast repairs, and they've got 2 hours of racing, so they've got plenty of time they can make up right now. But I think for Stock, how long is he going to go before considering a pit stop? Now, for those of you who weren't with us at Silverstone, it was the case at Silverstone. We saw the traditional strategy was for our drivers to pit around the 40-minute mark and also the 80-minute mark. So on the timer there at the top, it will be the case at 40 minutes, so 40:00, and then what will be 80 minutes, that will be 1 hour and 20 minutes in that we saw the pit stops. We'll wait to see as we are hearing there's been a bit of an incident further up the road here, and oh goodness me, we've had a massive incident coming through Blanchemont, and that looks as though it involves Arjan Bakker and also what appears to be, unless I'm very much mistaken, well, we're just trying to figure out who the other driver involved in that was. Was that Jochen Seeger involved in the incident? Well, Seeger's into the pits right now, but there's been multiple drivers involved in that incident. Let's take a look back. So making their way up towards what was Blanchimont here, and it ended up being almost 3 wide at that point, and we're going to see that's Prouting at the head of the... Oh my goodness me! That is a Lamborghini Huracan. We're still trying to figure out who that is. I think that's Navarro de Bova there. Oh no, that was Navarro de Bova. Yes, it was Navarro de Bova who was involved in that, and Jochen Seeger as well being collected as part of that. Let's just take a look back at that once more here, right on board with Jochen Seeger. This was absolutely horrific. Now watch here, you're going to see Navarro de Bova tries to go around the outside, but then Bakker loses the car, and then Seeger has nowhere to go other than into the 2 wayward machines, and that is going to put a major dent in all 3 of their races, of course, as they come into the pits. They've all come to the pits immediately right now, but I'm happy to tell you that all 3 drivers are okay and still racing once more once they emerge from the pit lane right now. But some major incidents already, and what we were saying as regards to those pit stops, we have seen the traditional approach of essentially the 2 pit stops being essentially symmetrical over the course of the race, but will we see somebody try to buck the trend, assuming they don't have any instance over the course of their race distance? Now, speaking of a driver who won't want any instance, he'll want the smoothest possible way to make his way up through the field. We can see Matt Caruana here, who is now in P4, and he's got himself onto the back of the top 3 fight here for P1 overall, and of course in the Pro League, and you can see as they make their way down towards the bus stop chicane here, he's backed off a little bit through Blanchimont, and Caruana I think now will be looking at how he overtakes Faines, Desunit and Bishaf. 3 drivers who are very fast, to be fair. They haven't quite been on Caruana's pace, but what I can tell you is that they've all been very competitive, as we do see here Billy Fletcher coming past Arjan Kregel. Kregel a lap down on our leaders already with the incidents that have occurred, and I think Olly Waind, I'm hearing, has just had a major incident of his own somewhere out on circuit. Well, Waind has dropped down to P20. He's behind George Bland right now. Waind is the best part of 7.5 seconds down on Bland. What has happened to the Mercedes driver? Well, this was moments ago up into Stavlo. No, that's not into Stavlo. That is into Vanges. And coming through 13, absolutely okay. Through 14, he stamps on the brakes. They're going wide to the apex. Oh, goodness me. And to be fair, if you want somebody with cat-like reflexes, Mikkel Andreasen are getting the brakes on. Now, that was incredible from Andreasen not to have more than a gentle tap on the side of Wayne's car, but Wayne getting it wrong under braking there into 14, and now finding himself having to chase after it all again, as behind them we can see we do have Nigel Stock battling with Kurt Van Hernacker. Van Hernacker on the inside here, making the move into La Source, and I think Stock's just trying to nurse that car around right now. That BMW not looking comfortable, and behind them they do have Colin Martin, who's a lap down and trying to unlap himself right now after a major incident earlier on in the race, as they make their way around and up towards Uruj and Radion once again. Now, I can tell you that whilst we've been looking back at the replays, there is the case that Gareth Mills, who was a lead in the AM class, has been passed by both Mark Baker and also Alexander Betak. And how did that happen, you ask? Well, let's take a look very shortly as they make their way through X corner right now. But as they come on down the hill towards Poole, and it does look as though Mills not able to mount a counter-offensive here, and instead tucking in behind for the time being. As they come down through Poole, through the left-hander here is the case that Mills just rising a little too high onto the apex curve there, the first of the 2 apexes of Poole, and as a result now losing out, whereas Betak getting ever closer to the back of Mark Baker. And I'm sure right now Betak is thinking, one more driver to go, and then he has got the lead of the AM race, and he can try and break away, and that's what the Switchback Motorsport driver will want to do. He will want to clear Baker and just run off into the distance, what will be the win in both this race and the championship. And the Dane can see it in his sight, but there is a long way to go down the tunnel to that light at the finish, and will it be the case that it's too soon? We will wait and see as they come roaring up towards Blanchimont here. He's not close enough to go for a move, and I think Betak will know, given the fact he will have heard in his ear from the pit team and the pit chief, that is the fact that so many drivers have had incidents already. Don't do anything silly right now as Baker defends to the inside here. Betak looks at the cutback through bus stop 1, but as he makes his way into the second part of the chicane, you can see here Betak going for the offensive exit, but Baker defends hard to the inside as they come down towards La Source on what is lap number 10, and as they make their way down, Baker does not want to lose this lead. He wants to take the lead for himself as well. The Ferrari driver there, he defends on the inside, and we can see that Betak going around the outside here, trying to find a long way round, and then switching back onto the racing line, tucking in behind Baker once again as they get ready to go through Rouge and Radion. There's no way through this time. He waits, Betak. He is a very patient man, and as they make their way up the hill, we ride on board here as they come over the rise at turn number 5, and into turn 6 they go, and it is nose to tail right now, and you can see Baker defending to the inside, and we can see Betak looking around the outside. It's going to be a drag race up towards Lake Calm. They come down towards the braking zone for its turn number 7, down to third gear they charge, and as they make their way going to the brakes. Betak sends it round the outside, and he gets the move done, and Baker drops the position, and it is the case. He's now got Gareth Mills, who's trying to find a way on through. As we see, we've got a car off there, and I believe that is Matt Emmons, who is off circuit right now after coming out the pits recently. Indeed, he is parked up there on what is the exit of, well, the runoff area onto the gravel of turn number 9, and now makes his way back onto the circuit. That's very unfortunate for Emmons. I think the rear end may have gone again, but meanwhile we can see our top 3 in the AM class right now. After that move made by Betak, he's up into P1, P11 overall, and now he is going to try and make the break. He's already opened up 8 tenths of a second on Baker, and now Mills will be looking for an opportunity to come back at the Briton with the South African. Can he do it? However, that is the big question as they make their way down towards Vange's chicane once again. And behind them, look at this, Mikkel Andreasen. He's currently P14, P4 in the AM class. He's also trying to creep into a shot of the podium. He's a little bit further back at the moment, but we will wait and see as he makes his way through at Vange's chicane and now up in towards Stavlo. Meanwhile, further up the field, I can tell you that in the battle for the top 4, it is the case that Verschaft, Sunit and Faines right now are all together once again. But then we've got Caruana, who's decided to stay a little bit further back in. Now, I think we may be seeing something a little bit tactical from Caruana here. I think he might be concerned that the fact that the 3 drivers ahead of him are all essentially battling one another, and as a result, he doesn't want to get too heavily involved in that. But meanwhile, getting involved, I can tell you that it's Jamie Dory who's now experiencing some pressure from Øystein Herford as they've both gone past the back mark of Arjan Kregel, and they come out of the source and into turn 2, and it does look as though here we have Herford trying to close up. That Ferrari so strong in the acceleration zones, and the 488 Evo doing a very good job of keeping Dory safe right now. Indeed, Dory himself doing a fantastic job of driving that Ferrari, but as they come over the right to Origin Radio, and you can see here how Herford has closed up 2 tenths and is continuing to gain. I think we're going to be seeing a move into Lake Om, and as they come down here, Dory stays on the race line. Øystein Herford pulls out to the inside. It's about on the brakes, and I think Dory may have already rescinded the position. He's decided, you know what, I'm not going to fight it this time. I'm going to let Herford through, and they make their way now through Lake Com and into turn 9, and there's Herford up into P6, Dory down to P7 overall and in the pro category. As meanwhile, further down the order, I can tell you this is the man in P16 right now. He's P6 in the AM class. That is Chris Keenan, who after a little bit of a difficult race has dropped his way down the field, and he is chasing after Matthew Addy right now. And we do believe that both drivers have had difficult starts to their respective races. Addy has been involved in an incident earlier on, I believe, but we haven't quite heard what happened. It was quite a bit earlier in the race. We're not going to get that back anytime soon. But Matthew Addy right now, the Briton, will be looking to chase after Mikkel Andreasen. And do remember that Addy in the number 570 car, he has picked up a win in this series. We know he's got a lot of pace, but when we spoke to him following that win, it was one of the situations where he was saying to us that he found he just had not had the right opportunity to show that pace, and it was the case that bad luck had prevented him from doing so, and he is absolutely pushing it right now to chase after Andreasen, who is 4 seconds up the road. As meanwhile, I can tell you a bit further up from Andreasen, the battle for P2 in the AM class continues here with what is Mills and Baker fighting out, and it is Mills who is in pursuit of Baker as they make their way up towards Stavlo. And it does look as though Mills right now, who we ride on board in the BMW M4, doing a good job here of keeping right on the back of Baker, but I do imagine he's probably taking a bit out of the car as he runs wide there. You could hear how he had to lift off the throttle beyond the apex curve there of Stavlo 2 briefly, and that did cost him a significant amount of time. That has cost him 4 tenths alone coming out of the corner, whereas he should be right up there in the slipstream right now. Instead, he's quite a way back as they come through Blanchimont corner and up in towards what is the bus stop chicane once again. As they make their way under braking here, we switch back to the exterior cameras right now. And we can, oh, and goodness me, Mills there pushing a little too hard and just simply seeing the rear end snap on him as he came through the first part of bus stop. And I think for Mills, he'll now be thinking to himself, okay, I've pushed it too hard. I now need to back it off, as we're hearing that Prouting is into the pits here. So he's decided to come in. I think Prouting has gone for an early pit stop with that damaged BMW to try and simply get his first stop out of the way, but also tie in to his strategy rather than doing an additional stop. As we see Øystein Herford here under attack from Jamie Dory. So Dory coming back at Herford. It's the case of Herford not able to make the break away from the Ferrari driver, and as they make their way through Le Combe, you can see Dory really struggling through turn 8. And Øystein Herford, in fact, having to take a wide line for 8 in order to avoid clipping the back of Dory. Now as they make the way in towards what is turn number 10, once again through Rivage, it is the case as they come through. Dory really not able to keep a tight line there, and I think Austin Hereford may be feeling a little bit of frustration right now with the fact that Dory's back ahead of him, but Dory does not seem to have enough of a command in terms of keeping the pace ahead of Hereford or keeping to his pace. But we'll wait and see as they come through Paul and Corner here, and Hereford I'm sure is going to be looking at experimenting with a different line to try and gain that advantage and make a breakaway. But this is really starting to hurt his ability to make a break from Dory and chase after Fletcher and Caruana. You can imagine when Caruana and Fletcher start trying to fight their way through Fanes to Sunit and Verschaft, that is going to be where it will be needed for Hereford to be right behind them or closing with clear air. But he's not going to have that opportunity at the moment, I can tell you that much, as they make the way through Stavlo 1 and into Stavlo 2. But Hereford all over the back of the Ferrari driver here as they come through Stavlo 2, and he closes up as much as he possibly can here on Jamie Dory. We're riding on the gearbox of Jamie Dory right now, and you can see Austin Hereford closing, getting ever closer. That grill on the BMW looming large and trying to nip the back of the Ferrari as they come through Blanchimont. But it's the case that Hereford has to back off on corner entry there so as not to overspeed and run wide. And as they come up into bus stop, we can see Dory going defensive here, staying on a tighter line. That will compromise his exit out of 20 and into 21. It is the case that Hereford goes to the cutback line here to give himself the run up towards turn number 1. But you can see the Ferrari so strong in the acceleration zone versus the BMW, one of the Ferrari strengths. And as they make their way down to the source, no change once again as they now come through turn 1 and start making their way towards the Rouge Radion. But I say that and Dory makes a small mistake. They're going a little too wide on the exit, and this could be the opportunity Hereford's been looking for. He'll be very close. He'll be naturally close in the run to Rouge Radion. He'll wait until they've exited turn 5 to look for a move down the Kimmel Straight. But you can see Austin Hereford really building that pressure, and now he will know if he does this again, if he gets ahead again, he will need to try and break away through the rest of the lap. He cannot afford to be stuck behind us. We're here. Hus has come into the pits from P18 for his scheduled stop, and we can see it is the case. Hereford up the inside, Dory falls back, and now will we see a switch again a lap later? We'll have to wait and find out. With all this happening, I can also tell you that we can see here there is Matthew Addy who's on the charge right now. He's closed up to Andreasen considerably over the last couple of laps, and as they make their way charging around the circuit down to the Kimmel Straight, we do see that Addy looks to move and Andreasen goes defensive. Andreasen knows he cannot afford to let Addy come through at this point in the race, and we can see that he goes back onto the racing line. I think Addy decided to back it off there, saying, okay, we've had a little bit of fun. I know where you're going to be quite weak now if you make the same mistakes on the next lap. And I think what Addy's doing here, he's just waiting. He's trying to get Andreasen under pressure, and he's analysing what the Danishman's doing right now. He's looking for where he's going to be weak, where he's going to be strong, because remember, we've still got an hour and a half of this race to go. So if he waits a lap to make the pass, that he feels they can make the pass more safely, alternatively much more aggressively in terms of getting through and then breaking away, then I think Addy's going to be looking to do that rather than trying to get it done as soon as possible, because he's not under time pressure per se as they make their way around the circuit. And as they come down through Paul Corner, it is the case that Addy backs off a little bit now, lets the gap open up to 6.5 tenths here, and I think he's just playing the patience game. But I tell you one person who's not playing the patience game is Verschaft, who's got Jasunico over the back of him right now. And as they come down towards bus stop, and you thought we'd forgot about our race leaders, we haven't. They're just getting a little bit more frisky now, and as they make their way through bus stop chicane, we can see it is the situation whereby our top 3 have now got our championship leaders in the pro category of Fletcher and Caruana, albeit in reverse order right now, as we can see that it's Caruana in P4 and Fletcher in P5. They are now looking to try and get through the top 3 here, and this is the mother of all gauntlets, because remember, all 5 of the drivers who you see on camera right now are battling for position. They're all battling as well for championship points, albeit for Caruana and Fletcher, they will feel they've got a better cause to be right out there at the front, because they are battling for the championship win come the end of the 2 hours tonight, whereas the guys ahead of them are battling for what is just points lower down the championship. As we're hearing that Mikkel Andreasen has come into the pit lane, so he's not holding Addy back any longer. He's decided to come in with the pressure behind him, and we can see here that our top 3, followed by Caruana and Fletcher, well, none of them have changed position so far. But we are also seeing that it's Jamie Dory versus Austin Hereford again, and these two just cannot separate from one another. It's almost as if they're conjoined as they go around the circuit right now. Each lap they change place, and Hereford is now back behind Dory once again after a run down the Kimmel Straight as they come into Rivage on what is lap number 14. And these two, I reckon, are going to be together for quite some time unless one of them makes a major error. But whilst this is happening, I can tell you that with Andreasen still in the pit lane, we've got George Bland now starting to make his way up the order, but he's got a long way to go if he wants to go after Alexander Betak. Now, do remember in the Amateur League, it is the case that Bland is one of our 2 leaders. He is our leader on countback, but he's one of our 2 leaders. Our other leader is Betak. Right now, Bland in P16. What is P6 in the AM class? Now, P5, as we see Keenan there backing off on the exit of turn 9. And I think Keenan there just simply feeling as though he doesn't need to fight Bland, or perhaps in his mind, he's made a mistake somewhere. But Keenan there just simply losing out, and Bland on the charge right now. The M&V Esports driver trying to recover this race and then some, but he's going to be going after this man, and that is Alexander Betak, who after clearing Mark Baker is now in P11, and that's overall, but that's P1 in the AM class, and he has broken the gap to Baker up to 2.1 seconds, albeit oscillating around the 2 to 2.2 second mark. And as he makes his way here through the second of the Stavlo sequence, we can see it's the case that for Betak right now, he just needs to cruise to the finish, albeit he's got to put in the pace. Of course, he'll be wary of the fact that Bland is making his way up through the order, but he just needs to play it smart and sensible. He doesn't need to do anything magical now other than get the car home after the remaining hour and 28 minutes of racing as he comes down towards the bus stop. Meanwhile, our third contender in the AM class, albeit he was 7 points off of the top 2 going into tonight, is Olly Waind, who after that major error early on is now in P17. That is 7th place in the AM class, and he is chasing after Chris Keenan, his next target, who is approximately 5.2 seconds up the road. But meanwhile, we look back up towards our leaders once again as they come down the Kimmel Straight here, down towards Lake Colin. We can see Verschaft holding on for the time being, but Dasunik and Fanes are all over the back of him here. And as we ride on board the gearbox of the BMW driver of Verschaft, we can see the Team Racing Netherlands driver must feel a lot of pressure right now, because you can see the gaggle of cars just all wanting to come past him. Now, I think Dasunik may be trying to work with him to an extent, because whilst Dasunik has had opportunities, I think the 2 Dutchmen might be trying to just do some magic together here and get some great points and perhaps both snatch a double podium. But we will wait to see as they now come down through X corner here. We do have that situation where it is the case where Dasunik has got Fanes inching closer, and Fanes will want Dasunik to get a move on because they have got Caruana and Fletcher trying to come through. And you can see that in the distance, Fletcher just holding back, much like what Caruana was doing moments ago. But Verschaft feeling the pressure right now of what is Dasunik behind him, and they have got the best part of 8 seconds before they close up to Ben Hicks, who's the first of the back markers for them to come up to in a recent point in the race. And as they make their way up into Stavlo here, no change at the moment, but you can see there is the case that Caruana is getting closer and closer and trying to find a way on through as they make their way through the second part of Stavlo. And Caruana right now is waiting, but he's brought that gap down, and I think Fletcher is gradually squeezing him towards the top 3. And you can imagine again for Caruana, remember, he needs to finish not just in the win, but he also needs to finish 2 places ahead of what is Billy Fletcher in order to take the championship right now. And if it was to finish as it is right now, Caruana would not achieve the championship win. He would still finish P2 in the championship, and Fletcher would take the championship as they make their way out of bus stop once again and go on to lap number 16. And our top 5 here separated in the end by only 2.5 seconds from nose to tail, and you love to see it as they come down to the heavy braking zone for La Source. And as they come on through, we can see nobody changing so far, and further down we can see Jamie Dorian P6 holding off Oistein Hereford once again, and these two seem to be in this intricate battle which never seems to stop. It just seems to go on and on and ever, which can't be a never-ending story here, folks, because we have to have one of them finish ahead of the other come the end of tonight. And meanwhile, further down the order, we can see Nigel Stock here chasing after Jürgen Knocker as they make their way through the second part of Stavlo and trying to find a way through. As they make their way through there, we can see Verschaft has still got Dasunik behind him here into Lake Com, and I do think Dasunik might be trying to work with Verschaft here, because Dasunik to stay this close behind him. We can see Caruana looking for the move on Fanes here, and Caruana is getting fed up away, so you can see he's now looking for that opportunity as they come down into Rivage. And I think it may be the case that the top 3 are trying to play a little bit of teamwork for Team Racing Netherlands. All 3 of them are trying to use the leader to do a bit of fuel saving and run to a pace, but I think Caruana is now getting ready to tear up the strategy, because he runs wide there out of what is X corner, and you can see that Fletcher is looming large in his rear view mirror as they make their way into left-hander appeal. But they are definitely not going to be waiting much longer, Caruana and Fletcher. You can see they're both coming together, and as they come together they will want to find their way on through as they now come down towards the Fanges chicane. Meanwhile, further down, I can tell you that Arjen Kregel and Jean-Louis Deschamps have both been involved in an incident, and Reese Young is into the pit lane as well. What's happened to Arjen Kregel? Was they're making their way here down towards turn 1 into La Source. We can see Kregel in the Porsche there. It was the case that he went into the corner. That was contact and going for a spin, and we see a car coming through behind. That's not Jean-Louis Deschamps. Deschamps having to stamp on the brakes there, and that's what happened. Kregel being involved there in that instant into turn 1. Very unfortunate, and he's now back racing in P31, as we do see here that we've still got our top 5 nose to tail as they come through Blanchimont. Now, of course, whilst we are waiting for the next potential battle in our top 5 here, we should take a look in with you guys and girls in the chat and see what your thoughts are so far. But with so much action in this race, you can imagine at any point we look away and we're going to miss something beautiful. And what I can tell you that right now, as they make their way on down, we do have in the chat, we've got KT Eames there cheering on the M&V Esports boys and Bland for the AM win. We've got Tim Miller in the Twitch chat saying this looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Go Mikael Andreasen. He's supporting on Mikael Andreasen, of course, who is currently down in P22 after his pit stop. So he's had one of the first pit stops in the AM class, and he's now in P22. That's P11 in the AMs. But remember, he is a 1 pit stop ahead of a good number of the drivers ahead of him, as we do have Jean-Louis Deschamps coming into the pits and Gareth Mills into the pits as well. And we have also got their K-Team saying AM champion, hopefully come on George. And we've got Fraser Rostance cheering on Jamie, and I do believe that is most likely, unless I'm wrong, it is for Jamie Doria, who's in that battle once again here with Oystein Hereford as they make their way down into Lake Com. And we have seen this time and time again, these two just trading places, and I wonder if they've perhaps formed a little bit of an alliance here, an agreement that they'll only ever pass one another down into Lake Com on the Kibble Straight, because that's where it's happening. Or perhaps it really just is the case that they both love chasing after a car in front of them and can't quite deliver the pace they're hoping for when they've got nobody in front of them to chase. I do wonder at the moment, because these two are literally inseparable, as we are hearing whilst this has been going on. Caruana has found his way through to P3, and he's now on the offensive versus Verschaff to P2, and we'll come back to the chat very shortly, folks, because this is very critical for Caruana right now, and he's trying to look around the outside into what is Vange's chicane. He can't find it as we ride on board here with Caruana. He's all over the back of Verschaff, and Verschaff has lost the lead to De Sunik, so this formation is now getting disrupted as he's ever so close to the back of what is Verschaff there, and Verschaff like a rolling roadblock in that BMW all over the front as they make their way up towards Blanchimont corner right now. And this is very, very dicey, because you can imagine one instant here and we could see Caruana's championship hopes completely go into the dust as they make their way through Blanchimont corner and they roar down towards what is the bus stop chicane. He looks down the outside here, and as they come through the corner we can see it's the case that Verschaff to Vanes tucks him behind, so close to the back as well, and Fletcher also there, and this is giving De Sunik a little bit of space to try and break away as they now make their way up towards what is the source. And as they come into the corner, Caruana looks the outside of Verschaff to the inside, trying to hold, and as they make their way through, you can see Verschaff parking it on Apex and making Caruana go all the way around the houses and then some, having to use the full grip for the road and the runoff area in order to stay alongside. But he tucks back in the end, or does he dare? He's daring for it. He's going to try and go too wide here, up through what is a Radion, and he makes Verschaff going wide. And as a result now, Verschaff will have a bit of dirt on his tyres, but he will still have some momentum. They've got a back marker ahead of him as well, as Ben Fanes is trying to come through here. It's all kicking off. Fletcher's also come through. So both Fanes and also Fletcher have come through. Caruana has lost out, and Tony Verschaff with a slow down there has to give up the place. Well, Caruana got past Verschaff, but it cost him a lot. It cost him Ben Fanes and Billy Fletcher coming through. My goodness, now that was absolutely dramatic as they now make their way down towards Rivage corner, and you can see how Fletcher, now that he's ahead of Caruana, will he be able to get the move done on Fanes as they make their way through Ix? I don't think it's going to come just yet, but Fletcher will now know that destiny is in his hands as he makes his way down towards Pouron corner. And as they head down towards there, of course, at this point, Caruana will be thinking that he just needs to cool it down after what was a very tempered pass. And as they head down towards what is Vange's chicane here, it is the case. He's now got to try and find a way of capitalising when Fletcher tries to make the move past Fanes. He's got to let Fletcher do the hard work, and Caruana just has to wait for the opportunity to strike. But as they make their way on through and come down towards what is Stavlo, let's take a look back at what happened there. So we're going to see that Verschaft has to lift off here, and as a result, Caruana as well, I think, just losing that momentum. Fletcher comes through at the last minute. Caruana stays out of the way of Fletcher and Vains, and that is how it all played out and how we had the switch there in the battle for P2. And earlier on, we did have that pass for the lead between what was at the time Verschaft and Dasunik. We'll try and bring you that shortly in terms of what happened, but whilst that's happening right now, we can see Ben Vains under pressure here from Fletcher as they come down towards bus stop. Will we see a potential move? Let's wait and find out as they make their way on down. It doesn't look as though there's going to be any move this time. They're just waiting patiently as they come on through the corners, and as they do, it is the case that Vains holding on for the time being, but for how long can he hold on as they make their way across that timeline? And Dasunik is being reeled in as well here. This is very uncomfortable for Dasunik, but we're taking a look back. How did Dasunik get the lead, you ask? Well, here we go, and it was in the rundown towards Lecom. In the end, Dasunik had the move, and I think Verschaft in the end just simply could not fight it, and Dasunik got up into the lead, and that was the lap before we saw all the action start to kick off as they rip raw now through what is Erugen Radion once again. And Vains, of course, will be about 4/10 off the back of Dasunik as they come onto the Kimmel Straight, and as they roar down here, will we see a change in place once again, or will we see them all stay in formation as we see Caruana picking up a little bit of grass in his left hand tyres there, but that shouldn't be anything major. They all stay together for the time being. Now, whilst this has all been happening, we have had a number of pit stops occur. We've had quite a few of them. We've had Addy and George Bland into the pits. We've had Mark Baker into the pits. So we're all starting to get those pit stops. But right now, as things currently stand, Alexander Betak just coming out of the pit lane, our leader in what is the AM category. And he's made his first stop here, and he's making it count. He's picked it up nice and early. And as he makes his way on through the pit lane right now, I think he's going to be feeling quite confident as Olly Waind continues out on circuit. Now, Waind has yet to make a pit stop, I should point out. So for Waind right now, it's about trying to put in the best possible laps. As remember, our drivers have to do the full pit lane. It's the combined F1 and GT World Challenge pit lane. They have to do both parts of the pit lane, so it is a very long pit stop here at Spa, and it is going to be a tremendous time loss when they go on through as they head down towards Lecom. Does Olly Waind, and behind him there we've got Colin Martin, who is a lap down. And whilst we do have a brief breather, well, I was going to say we have a brief breather, then Caruana all over the back of Fletcher, so hold that thought, ladies and gentlemen. We'll come back to that in a second as Caruana putting the pressure on Rao versus Fletcher as they roar through in towards Blanchimont here, and I do think it's the case that for the three drivers, as they're all tucked behind Dasunik, as Vains, Fletcher and Caruana, you can see here that Fletcher having to defend, Caruana looking for them. Oh, goodness me! Fletcher tapping the back of Vains, and this is where it all kicks off and where it can all go so very wrong, as with that we've heard that Dasunik is into the pits and Caruana is now into the lead. Fletcher resumes on circuit, Ben Vains resumes on circuit, but that was an absolute nightmare moment for Fletcher, and let's take a look back at what happened. We will do very shortly, folks, then here we go. To ride on board with Fletcher here as he was making his way down towards bus stop. Now, he did have Caruana over the back of him, and as he made his way under braking here, I think he's just coming too late on the brakes with too much speed, and that was the contact. And as a result, Fletcher, with that contact, has now lost a significant amount of time, plus damage to the car as well, and he will be looking to go once again. Now, do remember, this will not be enough for Caruana as it currently stands. Fletcher can afford to finish 2 places behind Caruana and still take home the championship, but what damage has Fletcher got on the car? And on top of that as well, how can Caruana now use the fact he has got clear air to his advantage to break away? And remember, we have had Dasunik pit, we've had Tony Verschaft at pit as well, and those two will be looking to jump ahead of these guys by undercutting. We will wait and see, as we are hearing as well that Olly Waind has come into the pits from what was the lead at the time of the AM class, and surely this will mean that Alexander Betak is going to resume the lead of the AM class after the first round of pit stops. As a bit further down, we are seeing that Mark Baker, he has been jumped by Mikkel Andreasen after the first round of pit stops here, and Andreasen making that early pit stop has made this count, and this is very impressive from the Danishman as they make their way up towards Blanchimont corner. As I mince my words together, 45 minutes into the race, and everybody going a bit longer than the 40-minute mark. As we see here, it is the case that Baker on the offensive here, but will he be able to, as we're hearing that Olly Waind has jumped to the pits and in fact fallen a lap behind everyone when he was in the pit lane. I think Wayne's made a mistake there, and that's going to be really costly, as we can see that Baker all over the back of Andreasen, and he's not able to find a way through for the time in as they come rip-roaring now down towards turn number 1. You see Baker trying to look for the move, and Andreasen immediately saying there is no way through for you, Sunshine. I'm going to take that racing line, thank you very much, as they come through turn number 1 and head down towards 2 and then up towards Rouge and Radion. As we take a brief breather there and grab a glass of water, Caruana and Ben Faines into the pits, and Billy Fletcher as well, ladies and gentlemen. So our top 3 are responding to the fact that we have had what was Robert Dasunik and Vershaft come into the pits, but as we see our drivers making their way round right now, it is Baker who's on the offensive versus Andreasen down towards Lacombe. On the Kimmel Straight they come to the end, and as they come into the braking zone, no way through as Andreasen goes defensive here. And now, well, to give you an idea, with Olly Waind having that disaster pit stop by the sounds of things, it is Mikael Andreasen who's up into P2 in the AM class, and Alexander Betak is only 3 seconds up the, well, sorry, 4.5 seconds up the road right now. So this is battling for the podium of the AM class, and you can imagine that all these drivers will be looking to go, and that's Matthew Prouting at the back of this trio. And with that now repaired BMW, he will be looking to go on the offensive as well as they all come roaring through the X corner and down towards Pouon. And meanwhile, we check in with our stewards. There's nothing with regards to any instance at the moment. So as a result, things are relatively settled at this current point in time. But as we look around the field right now, we can see that Baker trying to find his way past Mikael Andreasen into the corner. They go into Vander's chicane, and he does look for it. But dare he go that late on the brakes? I dare not say so, ladies and gentlemen. To do so there, that would have been a move that would have needed Andreasen to be very compliant, and I don't think Andreasen's going to be compliant for any move that Baker decides to put on him at this point in time. Andreasen will want this second place as a minimum to wrap up what has been a difficult second half of the season. We see Prouting there going very wide out of Stablo, and that will be a track limits warning for definite for Prouting as he resumes racing as they come roaring now down towards Blanchimont corner, and they space out slightly as meanwhile Morten S. Oosterhuis here making his way down towards Blanchimont corner. He's chasing after Matthew Addy. These guys only the best part of what is 5 seconds off of Stefan Gamborg Rasmussen, who is 5 seconds off of Prouting, Baker and Andreasen as they make their way on through, and Oosterhuis chasing after Addy as rapidly as possible. Now as they make their way into the heavy braking zone for the bus stop chicane, no change to it currently stands, just trying to find a way on through. And there's George Bland, who needs to get himself past these guys and go hunting after Alexander Betak. Now do keep in mind, Betak is the best part, rough order of magnitude estimate, about 20 seconds up the road, if not more, from George Bland. So Bland right now has got to go more and then some even more on top of that in order to gain. But meanwhile up front, I can tell you after the first round of pit stops, we have a new leader overall and in the Procast. And would you believe it, ladies and gentlemen, it's Øystein Hereford who's leading right now by 2.6 seconds over Matt Caruana. And we have then got Jamie Dory, who is behind Caruana right now. And then we've got Jeremy DeBova, who I believe has also pitted. He's up into P4 as Robert Dasunik versus Jean-Louis Deschamps here battling through what is Rivage Corner. We can see there Tony Vershaft also coming through, and it looks so Jean-Louis Deschamps not putting up a major fight, having to nurse that Porsche around the circuit after the instance it's been in, and it looks as though they're trading place, and Vershaft flashed his lights, I think trying to say something to Dasunik where he's trying to pass the message, alternatively give him a little bit of a distraction. We'll have to wait and see as they make their way on down. Colin Martin's into the pits, I'm hearing in my mirror, and also in my ear, and I'm looking out of the mirrors right now in terms of looking out the commentary box window, and I can tell you that Colin Martin's definitely into the pits as it currently stands as they make their way roaring down through Fanju chicane. And as they come on down here, it is the case that right now Dasunik trying to hold on to that position with Shaft and Deschamps all over the back of it. And then further down we do have Billy Fletcher, who's come out the pits behind Ben Faines, are literally tucked in behind him, and the Luxem 24 driver will notice that Caruana is much further up the field. Perhaps there's been a difference in the pit stops, perhaps it is the case and that with Fletcher having to repair the car, but also on top of that, perhaps he's decided to make the tyre change early, perhaps he's decided to put in some extra fuel, and we'll have to wait to see how it all plays out. As meanwhile Vershaft versus Dasunik, does he make the move here? No, he waits, he doesn't go for it, he backs it off into the bus stop chicane, and we can see Jean-Louis Deschamps tucked in behind right now as they come around to complete their 21st lap of the circuit, and we are 50 minutes into the race. And it's at this point I think we do have just a brief breather to look through some of your comments in the chat, as we also see Sean Sayers there saying great racing and amazing commentary. Thank you for supporting our racing there, Sean. It's great to hear you're enjoying it. Craig Pearce as well enjoying the racing, and we say hello to Craig Pearce in the Twitch chat. And then we've got Alex Ward who is supporting Jay, and indeed in the Facebook chat there Alex Ward hoping that things work out for Jay as they make their way around the circuit once again. And it's for Shaft still tucked behind Dasunik, and Fletcher meanwhile trying to get past Ben Faines. And I assume by Jay there, Alex Ward, you're referring to Jamie Dory, unless you're referring to another driver. Feel free to clarify on that. But we can see here Fletcher going for the move on Ben Faines. I think this is the move he's been hoping for some time, and he's been able to find it. Just tuck up the inside into Lacombe, down the Kimmel Straight, and he's got it done. Now, can Fletcher make the break and go chasing after Jean-Louis Deschamps and Tony Verschaft, who are only 1.5 seconds up the road? My thoughts say yes, and I think Fletcher will be definitely trying to push for it here as he comes roaring down through Rivage Corner for the 22nd time of asking, and will now try to close up on P7. But further down, Prouting trying to find his way past Baker right now. He's not been able to do it, but Baker has dropped off the back of Andreasen here, as we're hearing that Arjen Kregel has come into the pit lane, and it looks as though Prouting is starting to go on the offensive, as Jochen Seeger is also in the pit, and I believe Matt Emmons as well is in the pits currently, although I may be mistaken about that as they make their way on through. I think we have lost Mark Sykes already in this race. I think there's been a major incident with the car and they haven't been able to get it fixed, and I do hope Sykes is okay. But right now, Prouting on the offensive here versus Baker. Can he find a way in? We will have to wait and see, as he's still a little bit further back as it currently stands. I think he'll be waiting for an opportunity up into bus stop, alternatively through Blanchimont if he wants to go a bit earlier than that. So as we continue to look down the chat here, we can see Matt Emmons. I'm out already, but loving watching though. So Emmons enjoying watching the racing, but he's had to retire the car. That's very unfortunate for Emmons, but it's been great to hear from you, Emmons, and I hope you're doing okay despite everything that's gone wrong today. We can see Prouting how we're looking for the move on Baker here as we come back to our screens, and Baker defends the inside. Baker definitely showing his defensive credentials here. If there's one thing we can say about Baker, is that he can defend. He's an unstoppable, well, he's not an unstoppable force. That's what Prouting's trying to make himself, an unstoppable force, but he's the immovable object is Baker. As we see Prouting locks up there and has to take to the runoff area to avoid clipping the back of Baker, and this is what Baker's trying to do. He's trying to frustrate the drivers behind him to get them to make mistakes, as meanwhile we can see Oosterhuis here has just dropped down the order as he makes his way on through. It's not Oosterhuis has made the mistake, but we have heard Oosterhuis has dropped behind Matthew Addy and is still stuck behind him. It is Gamble Rasmussen who's had an incident somewhere out of the circuit. What has happened to Rasmussen? So making their way down into the bus stop chicane. This was only moments ago, and that looks to be there a Mercedes driver. I think that's Dirk Vouch trying to come through. Colin Martin and Rasmussen deciding that the brakes were not going to work and taking to the runoff area there. And I think getting caught out with his brakes on and coming into the pits as well. I think that is a timed stop, and there may be an issue with the brakes in that car that they need to take a look at while he's in the pits. But meanwhile, whilst the race is all going, we are hearing that Tony Verschaft has passed what is Robert Dasunik here. We're looking at Dasunik right now, but they have traded places, and I would presume it's going to be your traditional pass into Lacombe, and here it is, your standard pass into turn number 7. Verschaft going up the inside, they're getting the overspeed and getting it done versus Dasunik. Now as they make their way on through behind, Jean-Louis Deschamps under pressure now from Fletcher and Ben Faines as well, and Fletcher finding that it's a similar situation much like with Ben Faines, where being up behind a Porsche, it's not easy to pass the Porsches here. A very fast car around the Spa circuit, and as they make their way through what is the Fangent chicane of 13 and 14, we can see here Jean-Louis just holding that racing line for the time being and making Fletcher have to find a way through. Fletcher looks to the inside into what was Stavlo 1 there, but not able to find it. But Fletcher, you would imagine, will be looking for that move very shortly right now. He's looking very threatening as Fletcher as they come out of Stavlo 2. Oisin Hereford comes through to go onto another lap, as does Matt Caruana. Caruana setting his personal best of a 2:16.908 in this race so far, and as they come roaring up towards Blanchimont, our guys who we're looking at, Deschamps holding off Fletcher for the time being, but Fletcher all over the back of him through Blanchimont. Will we see an attack late on the brakes here? Will Deschamps go defensive? Deschamps holds to the inside, and we see Fletcher backs it off there, deciding not to go for it and instead waiting for another opportunity as they make their way through the bus stop chicane and on to lap number 24 I should say. That was lap number 23, and as they come on down towards turn number 1 once again, we can see that for Fletcher right now, he's looking for that move, he's thinking about it, but I think he's wary of the fact if he makes the move here into La Source, then he's going to be vulnerable in the Kimmel Straight, and that's what he cannot afford to be, is in a situation where it's back and forth passing, much like what we saw with Jamie Dory versus Oisin Hereford earlier on in the race. But right now as they make their way down towards Uruge and Radion and up the hill they go here, Fletcher, you can imagine, would love to nail the sequence of corners so he can have the attack on the Kimmel Straight, and he's done exactly that. And here comes Fletcher, he's going to be sending it, he's going to be firing a shot from his bow, and as he makes his way down here, will he strike true and go for the move into Lacombe? He's on the outside as he comes into the braking zone here. Can he beat the Porsche on the brakes? He does so indeed, and it looks as though Deschamps has to back off as Faines makes it 2 for 1 around the outside of Jean-Louis Deschamps into Lacombe, and Faines is up through into P8 as Fletcher's up into P7. Deshawn's losing 2 places and dropping down to P9. And a brave move there by Faines, but I think in the end, I think it was the case that Deshawn's realising that if Faines was that close to the back of Fletcher, it was only going to end one way, with either both of them making contact or having to let Faines through, and he's decided for the safer option as they make their way now down towards Pouron Corner once again. We're almost at the hour mark, and I'll tell you one thing, this race so far has been unpredictable. It has been full of battles, and we are absolutely loving it. At least you guys and girls in the chat are telling me that you're loving it, and we can see Greg B there saying in the YouTube chat, leaders in the race of Pro-Am going out for 35 minutes already. Indeed, they have been cheering on SC at PC at Kindful Creative Car, Matt Prouting, Joe Fernando Vlogs in the YouTube chat there. And speaking of where is Prouting right now, here he is chasing after Mikel Andreasen. He's fallen back a little bit, but he has got past Mark Baker, and that was the key thing. In fact, we didn't see that on camera, the pass for what was P3 in the AM class. And we will just try and find that pass for you, ladies and gentlemen, and get a replay of that, because that is quite a critical move. I don't think we're going to be able to get it right now, but we will see what we can do. But it's definitely the case that Prouting has found his way past Baker and is now continuing on his journey to chase after Mikel Andreasen. And I don't think we're going to be getting that any time soon, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen. So that one we have missed, unfortunately. But Prouting on that mission and charging his merry way around through Blanchimont Corner right now. And then we have also got there, we have got Greg B saying about some early pit stops indeed, and then Craig Pearce in the Twitch chat saying what a move by Faint and Fletcher. Bravo gents, it's going to end in tears between Caruana and Fletcher, says Greg B. We've also there got Matt clarifying that Tony Verschaff got a slowdown penalty for cutting a rouge, and that's what we saw. Elwin Sykes in the Facebook chat saying wow, that's some great battles. And we have also got Sobergrid there saying go Mikel once again, seeing Mikel Andreasen of course in P2 in the AM. And we're all up to date with you guys and girls in the chat. Again, feel free to throw in your comments, your thoughts on the racing, what you've enjoyed so far and what you're expecting come at the end. But what I can tell you right now, we are expecting Dasunik to be hugging the back of Tony Verschaft. He's been doing this for a number of times, and these two of course have been very close together. But right now with those two close together, I can tell you two people even closer together. That's Matt Caruana, who's all over the back of Oisin Hereford and coming down into the Fangers chicane. He's gone for the move, and Caruana now back into the lead once again. Now, I do think for Caruana, as he runs a bit wide, he's got to be very careful of those track limits. He won't want to pick up a slowdown, and he definitely won't want to hurt the car. Not now he's got such a gap over Billy Fletcher, and right now if the race was to finish as it currently stands, Fletcher would lose out on the championship and Caruana would take the championship. But you can imagine that for Caruana, he, having passed Oisin Hereford, he will now go for it hell like leather in order to break away and take that championship, or at least take the win, and say he did everything he could as he makes his way down towards the bus stop chicane once again. He's got the traffic there of Janssen just ahead of him. That of course is Rick Janssen as they make their way through bus stop, and Janssen just simply moves out the way there as they come out of the corner, showing respect to the blue flags of course as they make their way down onto another lap. They go onto lap number 26 right now, and further down the field we can see that George Bland is continuing that recovery drive. But as we switch our timing screens there to give you the comparison in terms of just the class, ladies and gentlemen, what I can tell you as it currently stands, Bland is a long way off of Alexander Betak. If you look at those time gaps there, we are looking at effectively a time gap of somewhere in the region of about 20 seconds still, and Bland is on the offensive here versus Oosterhuis, as we're just looking at the amateur driver battle right now as they make their way out towards Blanchimont, and we ride on board with Bland as he looks for that attempt. Right on board with the McLaren MP4 12C driver as he comes through the left hand here of Blanchimont, up into turns 20 and 21 they go, and as he comes into the braking zone, no way through at this time, and Bland will know he's got it all to do here. He has literally got to pull this race out from nowhere and win now versus Alexander Betak. He cannot finish behind Betak. He has to beat the Danishman, and can the Englishman do it? I think it's a long way to go. We've still got an hour, however, and anything can happen in motorsport. We do know that as they make their way onto another lap here, and Bland trying to find his way past Usos, who's not making it easy. And Oosterhuis battling for that position. He wants to hold on to that P6 as they make their way through turn 2, and up the hill they go, and we'll just ride on board with Bland here. He'll be full of confidence trying to get the run through the corner so he can go on the offensive on the Kimmel straight. You could see they're nailing the apex, and Bland definitely he's got the momentum here as they come roaring through turn number 6 onto the Kimmel straight. He looks at the move Oosterhuis defence to the inside, but the McLaren's got a lot of speed, and as the drag race continues they head towards the braking zone. But I think the BMW's now got a bit of a speed advantage as they come into the brakes here. You can see Bland doing everything to hold around the outside to inside into Lacombe, and through turn 8 they go, and Bland there, the braver of the two on the brakes, and also round the outside, and you can see there with the attitude that Bland has shown, he wants every position he can, he wants to try and get back in the fight for the lead, and that was very brave. That is a man who's chasing after a dream right now as he makes his way through X corner, and Oosterhoos there putting up a brilliant defence display, but Bland just had a little bit more in the tank as they make their way down towards Pulon corner right now, and they start to separate a bit, and Bland on that offensive as we hear that Van Hoornacker is now starting to gain some place, of course, with Arjan Bakker and Navarro Debova in the pits, and Jurgen Ocker doing the same as Van Hoornacker makes his way charging up the hill through Rouge and Radion here, having a bit of a difficult race. Van Hoornacker P11 in his class right now as we do switch back to our overall sheets in terms of looking at the classes, and we can see here it is the case that Van Hoornacker P21 overall, P11 in what is the AM class, as we're hearing that Gamborg Rasmussen has had a bit of a moment out on circuit. What's happened here for the Switchback Motorsport driver as he's come out the final corner? Let's take a look. Was he's making his way up towards the bus stop chicane. This has happened, I think, on the exit of the chicane. He's come into turn 20 absolutely fine, and turn 21, as he got on the power a bit too early, he's come onto the sausage curb there, 21 too early, and that has caused the rear wheel to lose grip, the rear left to lose grip, the rear right to put too much power down, and the car has went for a little trip around towards the wall. As we now jump back to live pictures here, he's got Jean-Louis Deschamps, who's coming up to lap him, and he will drop down a lap compared to the pro driver as they make their way through, and there's some drivers coming through the pit exit there, and fortunate enough they were able to separate just in time. As we see here, it is the case that Rasmussen now finds himself back into the running, and in the rear of your picture here we've got Rhys Young in the Ferrari, the MV Esports driving the rather colourful Ferrari, I must say, who is doing everything he can in the number 999 car to just try and bring home a result here. He's currently in P18 overall and doing P18 in the AM class, P30 overall I should say, and just trying to keep it short and sweet. But meanwhile, looking back up to our top 10, particularly the battle here for P5 in the Pro class and P5 overall, we can see that it's Robert de Soonit right now who is on the offensive versus Tony Verschaft, and they are closing up to Jeremy Debova. And these drivers, of course, with a long gap to our race leader Matt Caruana, a gap that continues to increase, and it's almost 32 seconds as they make their way through. And we can see a no mercy there in the Twitch chat saying de Soonit is following the pace. Well, he is indeed right now, and I'm wondering how long it'll be before Fletcher tries to make a move on the Team Racing Netherlands driver, or whether de Soonit can prove to be very stubborn in defence as they make their way through Stablo 1. And with now only 57 minutes to go, you can imagine that the pressure will start to build. That time pressure, particularly in the mind, will start to build on a lot of our drivers as they're now over halfway. And we're going to take a brief pause. There's been a lot to discuss, and then we will come back and continue very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. And as our drivers here make their way down towards the bus stop chicane, we can see Fletcher not making the move, deciding to play it safe here. And I think Fletcher might be thinking about the long game or looking for a potential undercut, waiting for this opportunity. As meanwhile we see Dirt Bouts, the Mercedes driver here, who's P10 in the Pro class. He's all over the back of Mark Baker, who is P13 overall and P4 in the AM class. And I think Bouts here is going to look for the move, but we can see Baker defending there initially and bouncing in, finding a way to the inside. I think Baker was trying to pull himself on to the racing line, and Bouts, I think, was a little bit premature with his attempt to try and get onto the racing line before Baker did the job for him. But they switch places, and they now go racing once again down towards turn number 1. But meanwhile, as they make their way on down here, down towards turn 1, we can see a little bit further down the order. It's the case that Janssen right now chasing after Jochen Seeger. Seeger in P23 overall, what is P13 in the AM class, and Janssen P11 in the pros, that's P24 overall. He's trying to find his way past his fellow BMW driver. It's Team Racing Netherlands versus BMW Motorrad as they make their way into Pulon corner. And hold on a second, I think we've had a few changes of place here as Fletcher goes round the outside of what is Robert de Soonit here through turn 9. And is it the case that Fletcher's trying to go all the way through? Oh, goodness me, and de Soonit there. I think there was a little bit of contact, but in the end, de Soonit backs off and Faines has fallen back. Now, what has happened here is the big question. Let's take a look back and find out. So this was in the run down towards Les Combes, and you can see Fletcher on the inside versus Dasunik, but Fletcher goes deep on the braking, and as a result, as they come through turn 8, Dasunik tried to go around the outside to inside into 9, but showed Fletcher the space, and Fletcher there committed to the position and wanting to hold on. And I think as they came down to the corner here, there was just a tiny bit of contact between the two drivers, but in the end, Dasunik yielding the position. But my goodness, Fletcher there, very brave to continue the fight, as well as Dasunik, both of them wanting that position, as we are hearing that Matthew Addy, well, I think it's the case that Matthew Addy has had a bit of an incident somewhere out on circuit, and in fact, that Ferrari does not look a very happy Ferrari right now. It looks very hurt on the front side. You can see actually in terms of where the bumper has caved in around the front right tyre. What happened to Addy? So this was in the run only moments ago, coming out of turn 8 and into turn 9. And does the rear go here through turn 9? He goes wide out the corner, puts the left-hand wheel, the rear left wheel, on to the exit gravel, and that sends it into the wall. And that is the story as why Addy has got that front damage, as he makes his way now down towards Stavlo 2. But meanwhile, whilst we're looking back at that, Ben Faines has made the pass here on what is Robert Dasunik, and we can see how Jeremy Debova now defending versus Tony Verschaft here, and Debova, of course, the challenged by DBE driver, battling for position here. They've all taken a pit stop, and Tony Verschaft drag racing versus the Audi R8 driver. They're going to go side by side here into Uruja and Radion. My goodness, it's going to be too wide as they come up the hill, and there's a tiny bit of contact that knocks Jeremy Debova wide, the smallest of touches, and as they now make their way out onto the Kimmel Straight, you can imagine Debova will have to lift off and burn a slowdown penalty at some point, but we do believe, as he goes defensive here into Les Combes, and this is going to hold Tony Verschaft at bay as we see Billy Fletcher closing up, but the two of them almost made it side by side up the hill there, and it was only the tiniest tap which saw Debova lose the ability to stay on the apex of turn 5 as he loses the rear end and has to drop behind all of our drivers here, as we do see Fletcher looks for the defence here versus Faines, and Faines is trying to capitalise whenever Fletcher gets held up behind a driver. You can see the Belgian doing everything he can to put pressure on the Briton as they make their way down towards Pullen Corner right now. And we have got 5 drivers in the battle for the top 5 positions in what is the pro category as they make their way through Pullen Corner. Of course, they're battling for P4 right now, but how this will play out later on, you can imagine there's anybody's guess right now, but they are all feverishly battling for P4 in the pro category. And it is absolutely tight between these 5 drivers as they all want to end the season on a high. None more so, of course, than Fletcher, who wants to take that championship winner. And right now, he needs to be in P3. He doesn't want to be in P5. He needs to be P3 or higher if Matt Caruana is going to win this race, because otherwise, Fletcher will lose the championship in the final round of the season as they come up towards Blancheville once again. And Fletcher is as close as he's always been to the back of the shaft. He's looking for it this time as they come roaring up towards Blancheville Corner. Can he find a way on through as they make their way through the left-hander? Down into the chicane they come, into the braking zone here. We can see Fletcher, he looks to the outside, he's got the overspeed, but the shaft defends it heavy on the brakes here. But as they make their way through, you can see the shaft try to shut the door, but Fletcher saying no, I'm here, but he's not able to get it done, and Fletcher now has got to tuck back in. You can see Faines also trying to capitalise here as they all make their way down towards the La Source. They go on to lap number 30, and as they come into turn number 1, we can see it's the case that Robert Dasunik tucks in behind Ben Faines, and as they come out the corner, Fletcher wants this move done. He's flashing his lights. I think Fletcher is getting frustrated at the defence being shown by the Dutch driver ahead of him. It's the Briton versus the Dutchman, and as they make the way through Uruja and Radion, surely this time Fletcher can do it, unless Verschaft has got a major overspeed coming out of the corners. You can see that Verschaft holds to the middle of the road, and he moves over to the race line. Fletcher looks to the inside here, and Fletcher just needs to nail the braking zone, and there'll be a position gained as they make their way into Les Combes here, and Fletcher gains the position. But my goodness, and Ben Faines, of course, coming through with this all happening right now, and Fletcher is having to work every move. He is having to find a way past. The guys he's been battling with just have not wanted him to gain the places right now, and you can imagine they all want these points for themselves, of course, but Fletcher is finding a way through. He's having the difficult questions thrown at him, and as a result now, Fletcher is up into P4. He has got a 13.5 second gap to close up to the next man, and that is Jamie Dory, our P3 driver in the pro category right now. And to give you an idea of the lap times, Jamie Dory is lapping in the 2:18s and high 2:17s. Fletcher is lapping a second. Well, no, my apologies. It's 2:18s for Dory. That last lap for Fletcher was a 2:19, but we'll have to wait and see what Fletcher is able to do in clear air right now, because meanwhile, our leader, and that is Matt Caruana, he has set the fastest lap of the race, a 2:16.91, and his last lap was a 2:16.7, but I believe it was disallowed due to track limits. But it is the case that Caruana is flying, and he is doing everything he can as Øystein Herford comes into the pits from P2. Caruana is just trying to eke out as much of a lead as possible and not let anybody get back into the race as he makes his way around the circuit. And as they continue to charge on through, you can imagine right now it is one of those situations whereby for Caruana he just needs to focus on what he can do and leave it up to the racing gods as to what happens elsewhere down the field. But one thing's for certain, Fletcher is already on the charge as he comes across the timing line chasing after Jamie Dory. That last lap from Fletcher was a 2:17.5. Jamie Dory a 2:18.3. So on average, we're expecting Fletcher to be about 8 tenths to 1 second faster than the man he's chasing. Øystein Herford's in the pits, of course. So right now, it'll be the case that Fletcher will gain the position of Øystein Herford, but he's yet to pit as Fletcher for his second stop, whereas Herford's gone for an early second stop. And this is to undercut the battle that's ongoing right now, we suspect, from Herford. But this is going to be very tight to call, as we can see behind Tony Verschaft is holding on versus Ben Paynes and Robert de Soudit right now. And the Team Racing Netherlands drivers, the three of them there, the usual suspects running in their formation, making this race an absolutely dramatic one, and you love to see it. These are the closest battles on the circuit right now, as we can see their Big Bacon Gaming rating, and thank you for that Big Bacon Gaming. We really appreciate it in the Facebook chat. And we can also see there Katie Eames saying there's so much action, this is awesome racing, and Matt Evans, this is too good to miss, don't want to blink. Indeed, this is absolutely fantastic stuff. And well, I said from the start of the season that things were going to be dramatic, things were going to be unpredictable, but this, you couldn't predict this. This is phenomenal as the racing continues. Now we have to look away from these guys for a bit, unfortunately, and we look back to our leader in the AM class, and you can see here this is Alexander Betak, who right now is leading. And to give you a comparative in terms of lap times versus his main rivals, Alexander Betak on that last lap was a 2:18.9. George Bland meanwhile a 2:19.0. So the McLaren driver is not outpacing Alexander Betak. But what I can tell you is that George Bland is in P4 right now in the AM class, and he is closing down Mark Baker very gradually. He's closed him down on that last lap by 5 tenths of a second, as we've got Chris Keenan there into the wall on the exit of X corner. What's happened to Keenan? As we can see, Addy has to take evasive action there, and a lot of drivers will be coming through. In fact, I think on the circuit map right now, Keenan's got some clear space to return. But what happened to Chris Keenan? So as he was making his way through what was Rivage then and coming down into X corners, he came through the left-hander here. It was the case the rear end just simply let go on him through the corner. I think just too much steering input, and as a result he parked the car up, and we can see their dirt bounce having to take a little bit of a jaunt off the circuit, as we could also see Baker and indeed Keenan showing a lot of respect, just parking the car and letting people navigate round him until it was time for him to put himself back right. And he's going to be letting Gareth Mills through there shortly, and we can see Mills coming through. And for those wondering what's happened with Gareth Mills, we haven't seen from him in a little while. He's currently P15 overall, P6 in the AM class. He's done 2 stops. He's recently done he's only done the 1 stop. My apologies. That is Øystein Herford on my screen who's done the 2nd stop, who's behind him. But right now, Mills pressing on. He's fallen a bit behind Matthew Addy, although on that last lap, it should be pointed out, with Addy having to avoid the wayward Keenan, Mills was the best part of almost a second faster, and Mills putting in some very consistent laps right now, and is looking to try and bring home a good top 10 finish, well inside the top 10 in the AM class when all is said and done. But as this is happening right now, he makes his way down towards what is the bus stop chicane, and we can see behind him there you have the back marker of Arjan Kregel and also Chris Keenan. The driver chasing after him is Øystein Herford in the alternate class, but then we have Nigel Stock, who is a long way back on Mills right now as things currently stand. And here is Nigel Stock in P17. And that is P7 in the AM class. So things have calmed down a little bit with all the fighting at this point in time. But of course, we do get these natural calm moments in the race. We do expect every so often things will calm down very briefly, and then they will erupt once again. Particularly once we've had all of our pit stops, you can imagine that things will really start to kick off. Now, as we see here, Nigel Stott making his way into turn one once again. Kurt Van Hoornacker would love to potentially catch up to him, but not really able to do so. Only closed up a 10th on that last lap, we believe. Yeah, only closed up a 10th. In fact, no, actually closing up a bit more, closing up 6 tenths on that last lap. So do not count out Van Hoornacker here, the challenged by DB driver, who will be catching up gradually if he continues this pace. And I believe there behind him, that is Matt Caruana, our race leader, pursuing him, of course, as they make the way down. And I think Ben Faines has just... Hold up a second. What's happened here? It looks as though Ben Faines has made the pass on Tony Verschaft. And as they come on down towards the bus stop chicane here, will we see another switch? Will we see Faines give way to Verschaft? Will we see De Soenick come on through? All three drivers make their way through. But one thing we can tell you is that Faines has made the move. And how did it happen? Whereas as they were coming out of Stavlo 1 and Stavlo 2, it just looks though Faines had the better run through the corner. Of course, all three drivers there have been running in that sequence, but that's how Faines made the move. Now, will we see a change between them once again? We can see that Fletcher is gradually creeping away from these guys. He's creeping away at roughly a 10th or 2 a lap. But one thing I can definitely tell you that right now, Faines is matching Fletcher for pace. As I look through my timer sheets, Fletcher on that last lap a 2:17.1, Ben Faines a 2:17.1, Tony Verschaft a 2:18.2, Robert De Soenick a 2:17.5. So I think Faines has got ahead, or he's been let to take the position off of what was Verschaft and De Soenick there, because they may feel he can chase after Fletcher and perhaps bring him back into that battle. And Fletcher, I think, will be all too aware of the fact he's now got Ben Faines chasing after him once again, and he will not want Faines getting any closer to that 1.5 second window. But we will wait and see. Behind these guys, of course, we've got Jeremy Debova here, who's trying to keep up this momentum in the Audi R8, in the challenge by DB machine, as he makes his way there through the right hand of what is turn number 10 through Rivage corner. And he's got Jean-Louis Deschamps, who's trying to bear down on him right now. Deschamps only 2 seconds back. And then behind him, he's got Alexander Betak, who is a little bit further back. He's not the Switchback Motorsport BMW behind him. He's not that Porsche. You can see Betak, he's just made his way into X there. We've got Oosterhuis and Bakker behind Deschamps. They are both a lap down as it currently stands, as we see Deschamps making his way down the hill and in towards what is the chicane of Fanges once again. As they make their way on through the chicane here, it is the case that for Deschamps just trying to hunt down Debova right now, and gradually doing so, to be fair. Last lap from Deschamps at 2:18.2 versus Jeremy Debova at 2:18.4, closing down 2 tenths. If he keeps this up, he'll be within striking distance within the next 6 to 8 laps. But meanwhile, we see here Robert De Soenick has got Tony Verschaft just ahead of him. And as we ride on board here with Robert De Soenick, he's trying to find a way in to that P5 position. Now, will we see a switch between the two of them? Will we see a potential tactical switch? Or will it be the case that De Soenick is made to work for that P5 as they come into the bus stop chicane? To be fair, De Soenick has worked very hard to be maintaining this pace. I'm not taking anything away from him, folks. It's just one of those cases with the 3 drivers all part of the same team, as we come to understand it. Will they do something a little bit tactical? It looks like Verschaft's had the better run out of what was the chicane there as they come onto another lap and down into turn 1. So it may be the case we've got to wait a little bit longer to see what happens between these guys as they make their way on through turn 1 and up into turn number 2 and heading up the hill very shortly through 3, 4 and 5. But meanwhile, with the pit stops now starting to occur, I can tell you that Mikkel Andreasen has made his final pit stop of the race, his final scheduled stop, and he has come out in P21 overall. That's P11 in the AM class, and Andreasen has got quite a bit of clear out, and I think this was a very smart move, because the next driver up the road he'll be battling with is Olly Waind, who's yet to make a pit stop in terms of his second stop, and Waind is 11 seconds up the road, 12 seconds almost, and for Andreasen that gives him brilliant clear air. The driver ahead of him is Jamie Dory, who I think Andreasen will believe that Dory will be at least as fast as him, if not faster. And then behind him he's got Matthew Prouting, and Prouting has made his second stop, so he is kept ahead of Prouting, and I think that he's given himself a gap there that Prouting has closed down to 1.8 seconds. It was roughly 2.3 seconds when Prouting pitted, but it is the case that Andreasen giving himself that space out on track right now and trying to hunt down that second place in this race. But with regards to breathing, we're doing okay. Katie Eames in the Facebook chat, thank you for the recommendation. And we can see there, Matt Evans in the Facebook chat wants some help in there. I think I'm going to be able to cope, Matt, but keep on tuning in, mate. Enjoy the racing. We're almost to what is the final third of the racing now, as we have still got 40 minutes to go come at the end of this current lap. And we can see that Prouting gradually bringing the car up towards the back of Andreasen. In fact, he is closing up at quite a rapid rate as they make their way through Stavlo here. And I think Andreasen's got got to try and get the tyres back into the zone right now as they make their way on through the corners here, and as they come up through towards Blanchimont. Prouting is on a charge, I could definitely tell you that. He is inching closer and closer, lap after lap, as we hear Jochen Seeger has come into the pits on what was P20. That was P10 in the AM class, but meanwhile behind them we can see that that's Fletcher going past Hicks. Hicks, of course, being on the same lap of these guys, and Fletcher find his way on through. He's a lap up, and we can see here Prouting continuing that charge as they make their way onto, for them, what is lap number 34, and they come down towards turn number 1. And there is Fletcher in the rear of the camera making his way into turn 1 right now. He has got the driver Ben Hicks between himself and what is behind him there, Ben Faines, who goes a little bit wide out of turn 1, and I do think that Faines is doing everything he can and throwing the kitchen sink at trying to chase after Fletcher. The gap between the two of them has dropped just underneath 1.5 seconds. It's now 1.4 seconds, but I do think that Fletcher is doing everything he can to keep Faines at bay. I do not think Faines has got an outright pace advantage. He may have a couple of hundredths here and there, but it's not enough to close this down too rapidly, as we see Fletcher continues to hold on to that P3 position. Of course, at this point, Faines is getting the double toe, the distance off of Fletcher, and of course the immediate toe off of Hicks, but he will have to find his way past Ben Hicks a little bit later on around the lap, and that will cost him some time as Fletcher will look to open that gap up a little bit further. As we do see, in fact, that Hicks opens the steering wheel there and moves out the way, coming out of turn number 9 here, and in fact, I do think that Faines has gained a little bit. He's gained a 10th over the sequence of corners there, and Fletcher now will have to be wary of that because Ben Faines has crept up. Will it be the case as he makes his way there through turn number 11 through X and down towards Pouhon Corner? Meanwhile, our race leader, we haven't forgotten about him, Matt Caruana. He is in a world of his own right now. As we see that Gareth Mills into the pit lane, Mark Baker into the pit lane, Jean-Louis Deschamps into the pit lane as well. But Matt Caruana just makes his way through Blanchimont here, 30.7 seconds ahead of what is Jamie Dory in P2, and although Caruana has yet to make his second stop, you would have to imagine that on the pace he is demonstrating right now, that Caruana will feel, unless it is a very long pit stop, he will feel comfortable in his current position out of the circuit and think that he can take home that win, as he's not really got anybody putting any pressure on him right now. But of course we will wait and see what happens, as meanwhile, as he makes his way through there, we see Jamie Dory making his way up towards the bus stop chicane, and he continues to push on down towards turn number 19 and 20. Into the bus stop chicane he goes, in fact through 21 there, and as he comes on through, it is one of those situations where he's not really in a bit of a battle with Caruana, nor is he in that battle with Fletcher. I think Dory's just keeping his head down here and just focusing on keeping it together. He'll be seeing Fletcher in his rear view mirror every so often, but I think it's quite peaceful for the driver right now as he just continues his way around on the circuit. As he makes his way down towards turn number 3, we are just going to very briefly hear from one of our drivers who wasn't able to take part in tonight's race, and that is Ed Lack, but we're just going to get his thoughts on the season and the racing tonight. Hello Ed, can you hear me?
Hello.
Ed, good to have you join us in the commentary box for a brief bit. We're not seeing you out on the circuit tonight. Was it unfortunately personal circumstances or technical issues that's held you away from the circuit?
Work life, shall we say.
Oh, that's very unfortunate, but still, you're tuning in at the moment. And what are your thoughts on the race so far?
So far it seemed okay. It looks like Matt's got himself quite a comfortable lead so far. Yeah, I missed kind of the first hour, I guess, while I was still at work. But yeah, it seems like Billy's is... I don't know how the championship stands, to be honest. Maybe he needs third, is it?
So as it currently stands, Fletcher just needs third if Caruana wins, and he will take the championship, Fletcher.
Yeah, so Billy just needs to keep it sensible now, I guess, and make sure he finishes. Then he should be all good. But yeah, I think maybe still in the AMS, they might still have a bit of a battle to go.
Yep, so in the AMS at the moment, we are hearing that Alexander Betak has just come into the pits. In fact, we can see him up on the jacks at the moment making the tyre changes. Olly Waind, however, is well down the order in the AMS, and he's yet to make... Well, he has made his second pit stop, actually. No, he has not made his second pit stop. So Waind, who's currently P6 in the AMs, we'd expect him to drop down. And then that would mean that the only real battle is between Bland and what is Alexander Betak. And Bland, whilst he's leading at the moment, has yet to make his second stop. And I think Bland is trying to fly like a missile, but whether he's going to be able to hit his target, he's got to beat Alexander Betak. But Betak has been very dominant after Bland's early mistake.
Yeah, that is definitely for sure. Alexander has definitely made some good impressions on that AM series since he joined. I've just seen Chris Keenan has made a little bit of a mistake actually in P1.
He's just making his way now down towards what is Blanchimont. He looks relatively settled, but I think Keenan has had a couple of instances where he's made some mistakes. In fact, just using a little bit of the grass there to help turn the car through Blanchimont corner. But I think for Keenan, it's a bit of a development year, and we can expect him to be coming back into Season 2 quite strong.
Yeah, hopefully he'll. Definitely some of these back markers have made some improvements as well this season, so it's always good to see that. And hopefully they'll improve even more before next season.
Now we have to ask, looking more towards yourself briefly with some of the pit stops happening, your season, if you were to sum it up, how would you rate your season?
Not bad, I'll be honest. I think there was a couple of races where I definitely made some silly mistakes that I shouldn't have made. I think Brands Hatch springs to mind in the second race. But generally I'm actually quite happy with where I finished in the championship. I didn't expect to be in as many races this season as I did because of work, but yeah, overall I'm quite happy with what I've done.
And we have to ask you the question, will we be expected to see the CXR Project Black machine out on circuit in Season 2?
I am currently on reserve list, so the jury is out on that one at the minute.
Well, we definitely have our fingers crossed to see you out on circuit. But looking ahead now to the race here, we've got half an hour remaining, or just over half an hour remaining. Your predictions for how it will end?
I think Caruana's going to win. I think Billy should keep third, and I think probably Betak will win the AMs, I reckon.
Well, we'll have to wait and see if those predictions come true. I've got the same predictions as yourself, to be honest. But until then, thanks for joining us in the commentary box. It's great to hear from you, Ed. And stay safe and well.
Yeah, and you, mate. Take care.
So hearing there from Ed Lack, who wasn't able to race tonight due to a clash with personal circumstances, i.e. with work. But Lack there saying about his season being one of those ones where he was glad to be taking part in the races where were allowed, but still not the best of seasons, but looking to push on. And he's on the reserve list for Season 2. And we hope to see the CXR Project Black car out on circuit. Lack being a very strong driver, particularly in the later races. One of his most notable races, of course, being at the Gilles Villeneuve circuit. But one of those drivers as well who digs deep when it matters and never gives up. But as we heard from him, and he's tuning in the YouTube right now, we hear Joey Fernando Vlogs is riding on board Prouting, fuel saving to avoid a third pit stop. So Prouting right now trying to keep the car in a state where he can save enough fuel to get to the finish. And for Prouting, that is going to be a real torpedo in terms of his race right now, because he can see Mikel Andreasen only a second up the road. But if he hasn't got the fuel to go to the end, then he's going to have to give up that dream of securing a podium in the finale in the AM class and just bring that car home as best as he can, as he has got drivers coming up behind him right now. That is Desunit and Verschaff behind him, and they will be a lap ahead, of course, and they'll be looking to lap him. Perhaps Prouting can use that to his advantage to do some fuel saving in the slipstream of those guys down one of the straights here, but we'll have to wait and find out. Now, what else has happened whilst we were talking to Ed Lack, of course? It is the case we've had a number of pit stops start to occur. We have had Jamie Dory, who's made his second stop, and Dory has come out in P7 when all is said and done right now. And I would say that Dory is actually looking comfortable here for perhaps one of his season best finishes, and perhaps his best finish of the season, because if he carries on this pace and there's no unexpected events, or we haven't got the pit stops completely wrong in terms of the times, you can imagine that for Jamie Dory, he could be looking at a potential podium here, a P2, and perhaps be the driver that separates Caruana and Fletcher on the podium as he makes his way up the hill through Rouge and Radion. But we've still got half an hour to go, and it is the case that as he makes his way there down towards the Kimmel Straight, he presses on, and as he continues to head down towards turn number 7, let's see what he's able to do. Now, as he makes his way on down, I am wondering if Matt Emmons is still there, whether he's able to join us in the interview box, in the commentary box for a quick interview on his race and also his season so far. It's always good to catch up with some of the drivers. So, Matt, if you are listening in right now and you do want to pop in, do let me know. But, well, oh, goodness me, Lichers are saying Dory was going to have a fantastic end to his season. That is not what you want to see, and that is losing the rear end into Rivage Corner. He's rejoined the racing, and my goodness, that is Matt Caruana, who's now going to come through behind him here, and this is a very awkward situation because for Caruana, he's a lap ahead, although he's yet to pit, and Dory's race has now just potentially become undone as we're hearing Robert de Sunic and Tony Verschafter both into the pits. So it's the case Fletcher carries on, and now Dory, that is going to be a real pain in the backside with regards to the rest of his race, because that has cost him the best part of at least 10 seconds, plus also having made the pit stop. If that's upset any of the tyres on the car and put flat spots on them, will he be able to get to the end now? As meanwhile, further around, we can see that George Bland coming up into turn 7, and as he makes his way through turn 7 and 8, just pressing on for the time being. Can he bring it home? That is the big question as he makes his way on through the corners once again, as he continues to make his way through down towards what is Rivage Corner. You can imagine Bland will be chasing after Alexander Betak as he gets it wrong on the apex there of Rivage and almost makes a fatal error, but he's able to keep it together for the time being as he makes his way out of its corner. The tiredness is now starting to kick in. He's got Mark Baker all over his rear as they head down towards Pouhon. As he makes his way there down towards what is the Fangio chicane here, and he comes into the right into left combination, but Baker is going to be all on the offensive right now as he comes running through. Matt Caruana is into the pit lane as well. I can hear and I can tell you right now, looking out my commentary box window, and as we can see here, Baker chasing after Bland. It is one of situations where I think Baker will be thinking to himself, he's got to time this right, and if he's able to time it, he will be able to get it done. It'll be mission done, and it will be the case that he gains another place as they come roaring through the left-hander here, heading up towards Blanchimont. And as they do, we're hearing Ben Faines has also come into the pits. A bit of a later stop as they come through the left-hander of Blanchimont up in towards what is bus stop. They go Bland defends here to the inside, and we can see Baker trying to go all the way around the outside as we look to the exterior cameras here once again, and we can see Bland nailing the braking point and going defensive on the apex. And it's the case that Baker has to wait for another opportunity as the only driver of our top drivers right now in that top 5 not to pit is Billy Fletcher, who's now gone to take the lead for a period of time. We can see Baker trying to find a way past Bland. Now, in terms of their pit stops, it is the case that both drivers have pitted, so they are racing to the end, we believe right now, that Baker will want to find a way through. And Bland has got, if he wants to take that championship win, he's got to get ahead of Betak. And Betak right now is the best part of what is 30 or so seconds up the road. I think for Bland, the dream may be coming to its end right now, and it's all in the hands of the racing gods as he makes his way on through. And they come down towards turn number 7. Once again, they come down towards Les Combes, and as they charge on down, it is that situation where I do think Bland now's got to think about defending and just trying to bring home a valiant result in the end, as we are hearing that Arjan Vaca has just passed. Well, he passed briefly Eustace, and Eustace has got back ahead of him. What's happened here in the battle for P18 overall, and that is P8 in the AM class? Let's take a look back. So as they made their way down what was the Kimmel straight here and into the right hand they went, you can see it was the case that Backer trying to find his way round, but Eustace having the overspeed there to hold on, plus also the run on the brakes and getting the job done to hold on to the position right now. Eustace as he makes his way down towards turn number 12, down towards Pouhon Corner, but Backer will like to come back at him a little bit later on the lap, you can be sure of that. But meanwhile, our race leader, you're looking at him here, and that is Billy Fletcher. This is the first time he has led the race, and I think for him this will feel a little bit of uncommon ground in this race, but he'll be happy to know that he has led it for at least a lap as he makes his way up towards Blanchimont Corner. And right now, in his mind, I can only imagine that every lap has got to be perfect. He will want to come out the pits. He will not want to come out amongst Ben Faines, Verschaft and de Sunic. He will want to be clear of them, and as he makes his way for the bus stop, he comes into the pits. Now, Fletcher on his previous lap, it was a 2:16.81, only 3 tenths off of one of his fastest laps, a 2:16.78. The fastest lap of the race is in the hands of Matt Caruana at 2:16.3, which is an absolutely sensational lap, I dare say. But it is the case that Fletcher right now into the pits. Where is Caruana? Well, he is currently making his way through the Fangers chicane, so we would expect that Caruana is going to inherit the lead once Fletcher has made his pit stop. Meanwhile, Ben Faines is coming through Fangers right now, and Faines has made his second stop as well as he comes on through the left. Oh goodness me, that is Rhys Young into the wall there, and Faines having to take some evasive action. And Young, what on earth happened to him? So as he came through 13 here, and as he came into 14, did the car come too high on the curb? No, he got it through the curb all right, but it came out wide onto the gravel, and I think he's tried to power through it, and the car has gone into the tyre barrier there. And Ben Faines was very fortunate not to see Young come back across the circuit there, as that looks as though that is the front left suspension of Young's car taken away with the damage. And it is the situation that right now that for what was Young, he's going to be coming back to the pit soon as he Faines makes his way here through the bus stop chicane. Fletcher is still parked up in his pit box. Caruana has retaken the lead, or will be very shortly, as he makes his way through turn 1. And as he comes on through, we are hearing that Arjan Bakker has had a moment. In fact, that is a major one. That looks to be in the run out of Lacombe there. We'll come back to that very shortly, but where are Ben Faines and Fletcher going to play out? Well, Faines is coming across the line there, going through turn 2, and he has passed Fletcher once again, and as a result, as they come on through, it's going to be, well, I think Fletcher's come out of the pits. Fletcher is out of the pits. He's into P2. Ben Faines will be in the rear of your picture very shortly, and that means Fletcher has made the second stop work. He has cleared the chasing pack. He has not come back out amongst Ben Faines, Tony Vichat and Robert de Sunic. He has come out in P2, and he is only now 7 seconds off of Matt Caruana with 25 minutes to go. Fletcher right now, if he finishes where he is, he will take the championship win. And you can imagine at this point he'll be in two minds. One part of him will see that Ben Faines is 3.7 seconds or 3.6 seconds behind him, and he'll want to break away from the Belgian. The other part of him will say just play it safe and don't do anything silly. And then the third part will be thinking, what if I can close down to Caruana and make it a win in the finale as well as the championship win? We'll have to wait and see, of course. But Fletcher right now, if the race finishes as it is, you are looking at the champion of Season 1 in the Pro League. And Caruana, well, how I can feel right now for him in the cockpit, he must be thinking to himself, right, I've got the win, and now it's all about Fletcher making a mistake and losing P2 and P3 to other drivers. And Caruana, I think, might be feeling a little bit of a sinking feeling in his heart right now, but he will just have to get on with the job and hope that it all comes together and that by divine miracle, something can intervene. But we will wait and see. And speaking about waiting and seeing, he's been waiting to join us in the commentary box, and that is Matt Emmons, who I can say is now joining us in here. Welcome, Matt. Can you hear us? Hello, Matt. Can you hear us in the commentary box?
I can now, Paul.
So, Matt, difficult race for yourself out there. What happened to yourself, firstly?
I'm still trying to get to grips with driving the Lamborghini, I think. Twice into the hairpin, I just carried too much speed in and I just couldn't control the rear end of it.
And unfortunately, that was, I think, one of those instances put you essentially out of the race or put the car beyond repair. But I take it, looking ahead to Season 2, you're still going to be sticking with the Lamborghini?
I'm going to do some testing in pre-season, so expect me to be in probably a different car each week again. But I'm leaning more towards going back to the BMW where I felt most comfortable, to be honest. I lack the speed in it.
That's fair enough, and going with something that you're comfortable with sometimes can prove to be beneficial. We saw that, for example, with George Bland, albeit he's had a bit of an uncomfortable run in the McLaren. And really coming on to our championship battles at the moment, Bland, which you have to say, has probably had one of the worst races of his season with the incident he picked up earlier on. It doesn't look as though the championship's going his way come the checkered flag.
No, I feel a bit sorry for George because that McLaren's really difficult to drive, but he's made it work time and time again, and he said to me a few times, you know, should he swap to the Porsche, should he do this, but he's stuck with the McLaren and it really worked for him. Unfortunately, this race has gone a bit wrong for him.
Indeed, but I think right now he's chasing after Matthew Prouting, but Prouting is the best part of 5.4 seconds up the road. But we have heard from some of our viewers, particularly Joey Fernando Vlogs there, saying that with regards to Prouting, he's doing fuel saving right now to avoid a third pit stop, and he's lost out to Andreas, and he's lost out the best part of 4 seconds over the last 4 laps. Can Prouting make it to the end, in your opinion?
Well, I find it really, really difficult to fuel saving these GT3 cars, because in the open setup races you can change your engine map so to tell it to use less fuel, but with it being a fixed setup you can't alter it, so you're stuck in full engine mode, and I find it really difficult to try and save the fuel, so to speak.
Indeed, I think it's going to be an uphill battle for Prouting at the moment. His lap times, in terms of that last lap, are 2:19.49. George Bland at 2:18.2. Well, Bland at this point, he's 7 seconds off. Based on that and using it as a sort of 1 second interval, we should see Bland on the back of Prouting come the last 10 minutes of the race.
Yeah, and then it's if George can get him a bit earlier than that, if he then can try and catch Andreasen. I don't think he'll catch Betak now, to be honest.
And coming on to Alexander Betak, I mean, this race has really been flawless from the Switchback Motorsport driver, when you have to say the Dane just seems to have taken the lead of the AM class and then never let it go.
Oh yeah, that's the one thing I've always seen about Betak, is his lap times are consistent and he never really seems to make a mistake. He's just, in a few races this season, he's been a bit unlucky with incidents going against him and stuff.
But just coming away from our analysis quickly of drivers, I'm hearing that it does sound as though Jeremy Debova has just made the move on Dirt Bounce. I think Bounce has had a runoff on circuit. We're just going to take a look back at what's happened there. This was in the battle for P9, and apologies, we're looking at a picture of Addy right now having a little run there out of what was Stavlo and running slightly wide. But just taking a look at the pass that was made only moments ago by Jeremy Debova on Dirt Bounce. So this was coming into the bus stop chicane, and Bounce just going very deep on the brakes there, and by looks of things, almost if he let Debova through, in the end it was just Bounce getting it wrong under braking, and it looks as though Jean-Louis Deschamps in P8 overall is going to be under some pressure from Jeremy Debova and Dirt Bounce come the end of the race.
Yeah, with them being teammates as well, I'm kind of hoping Team Order's not coming in, we can put on a bit of a show for us.
Definitely. With Deschamps racing for Delta Motorsport and Debova racing for Challenge by DB, I do imagine there's going to be a bit of battling between them. And we also do have the battle that's growing between Øystein Hereford and Robert de Soenik. Hereford now coming up behind the Team Racing Netherlands train of what is de Soenik, then Verschaft and Ben Fanes a bit further up the road. And we're just looking at Hereford right now, who is chasing after de Soenik. What are your thoughts on the driving shown by Ben Fanes, Tony Verschaft and Robert de Soenik? The way they've been driving as a pack of three until really this last half an hour, they're now starting to spread out. They've been working together as a team throughout.
Yeah, when I watched Retired, obviously I started watching the stream and noticed this, and that is one way of saving fuel that I've never been able to do, to be honest, because I've never been in a pack where we stayed as a pack and we swapped around and stuff like that and helped each other out.
It's definitely working out for those guys, because right now Øystein Herford's got to try and find his way through. He's got to try and pick his way through the fuel-saving train of de Soenik and Verschaft. But as they make their way up towards the Rouge Radio, and we ride on board here with Øystein Herford, he's not close enough at this time, but I would suspect that he's probably going to try and eke himself just a little bit closer lap on lap and then try to make a move, much like what we saw with Billy Fletcher and Matt Caruana as they came through the trio. And as they make their way down the Kimmel straight here, doesn't look as though Herford's close enough this time. Do you think he's going to have it in him to make the move? We know that the Norwegian can be very plucky on the brakes.
Yeah, and especially with that BMW underneath him, it's been absolutely brilliant on the brakes all season for anyone that's drove it.
Well, as they come through, they come and head down towards Rivage now. He's definitely inching closer to Herford. He's closing up a little bit to de Soenik. I think de Soenik is actually losing a bit of the slipstream of his teammate Verschaft as they come out of Rivage and head up towards what is X corner here. And as they make their way on through, this is the closest battle we've got on circuit right now outside of the battle for P8 between Deschamps, Debova and Bounce. Has anything else taken your eye recently with regards to battles that are potentially out on circuit?
Not really, to be honest. I mean, while I was watching the stream, I sat on board with George for a few laps and tried to fill him on information that he might not have known about. But no, not really, I'll be honest.
Well, as it continues around right now, we still do have the best part of 17 minutes to go, plus the lap that they are on when they come across that timing line of 2 hours. But Jeremy Debova definitely getting much closer to the back of Jean-Louis Deschamps right now, and Deschamps under increasing pressure as they come out of Rivage Corner and into X. And it does look as though here Debova trying to find a way on through as we ride on board here the gearbox of Jean-Louis Deschamps. Now, where in your opinion do you think that it would be the case that Jeremy Debova could go for the move here? Were you thinking somewhere along the lines of bus stop, or do you think it may be down the Kimmel Straight?
I think it's going to be up on the Kimmel Straight. Just after that, he's a bit too far back now, but he'll use a quick thing from the next few straights when we can get the cornering right, and I think he'll get him up just after Kimmel.
Well, it may look as though, and going from one member of the Debova family to another, I believe Navarro Debova has just had a major incident going into the Fanges chicane. We're just going to take a look back at that quickly. And in fact, yep, here we go. The McChallenge by DB driver, that was down into Fanges, going into 13. He's gone a little bit deep on the brakes, and the rear end has snapped around completely. And Chris Keenan there having the reflexes of a cat to avoid, as did Jochen Seeger, as Navarro just let the car roll off the circuit and then got it back on track. But now looking back to live pictures, Jeremy Debova looking for the move on the outside versus Deschamps down into the bus stop chicane. He can't quite find it, but Deschamps goes very deep under braking. I think it could be the case he's looking for it to the Kimmel Straight, as you say, Matt, as they make their way down towards La Source.
Yeah, he just needs to get the exit out of this corner, keep it clean, no wheel spin, get it up Eau Rouge without touching the curbs and losing speed, and I think he'll have him.
Well, as we ride on board here inside the car of Jeremy Debova, building up with that Audi that Audi R8 V10 engine, he's fallen back a little bit. He hasn't had the best run out of La Source. He's the best part of 6 tenths back. Surely he won't be coming from that far back.
Well, the Kimmel Straight provides such a good slipstream. I wouldn't be surprised as long as we can get the exit here. And yeah, I think it could be on him because there's the weight on the brakes.
Well, here they go then as they make their way down. It closes up to 3 tenths, then also into 2 tenths. We're coming into the braking zone. Not quite there this time. I think Deschamps is safe for another lap here, but you can imagine the McChallenge driver will do everything he can as he gets a little bit of snap oversteer through turn number 8. Very unsteady and unstable, the rear end of that Audi by looks of things.
Yeah, it's a very lively machine, to be honest. When I jumped in it for 2 or 3 rounds, I found it quite, what's the word I'm thinking of? Torquey, to be honest. It is a challenge to drive, but when you can get it to drive right, it is really, really fast, as Jeremy's showing right here.
And going from one driver in the Audi to a driver in the Porsche, we can see Robert de Sunik looking for the move on Tony Verschaft, now coming out of Blanchimont and up into bus stop. This is the battle for P4 out on circuit, and it looks as though de Sunik here going for the cutback line through the chicane. He doesn't get the move done initially, but Verschaft very slow at the chicane here, and Oystein Hereford all over the back of the pair of them. We've got 3 drivers heading into La Source here on lap number 46, and as they roar down right now, it does look as though de Sunik's getting ready to make the move. Do you think Hereford could capitalise here as well?
He could well do. If he can get the run out of Eau Rouge. The BMW is really, really fast in a straight line, so he might be able to at least get de Sunik.
Well, here they go up the hill. They make their way through Rouge and Radion, and as they come out of Radion and on towards the Kimmel Straight here through to the right-hander at turn 6, as we hear Chris Keenan's had a moment elsewhere on circuit when Severshaft goes defensive to the inside immediately, but meanwhile de Sunik looks to go all the way round. He does go to the outside here, and Verschaft tucks in, and Oystein Herford's not close enough to capitalise here. It does look as though it's a bit of a casual pass, and Verschaft just tucks back in behind. And I wonder now whether we will perhaps act as a bit of a rear gunner to de Sunik as they make their way around the rest of the lap.
Yeah, it could be another fuel saving tactic. It could be, like you say, just playing rear gunner.
We'll wait and see as they make their way down into X corner right now. And in the battle for the lead for ladies and gentlemen of viewing, I can tell you that Matt Caruana is continuing to open up the gap. And in fact, only a couple of laps ago, we have had the fastest lap for this race raised by a huge amount. A 2:15.86 set by Matt Caruana versus Fletcher's fastest lap of 2:16.78. And that last lap, Caruana flying a 2:16.6 versus Fletcher's 2:17.3. Well, I'll tell you one thing, regardless of whether Caruana wins the championship or not, he's treating this race as if it's the most important race of his life, because he is absolutely flying, and he has every right to.
Yeah, Matt is very, very, very fast. He's proven it this season. I think he's proven it in a couple of other leagues he's done. And it's really nice to see these kind of level of drivers joining this championship, and Billy and Matt have taught quite a few of us a few tricks, and it should help us all improve and get faster this season as well.
Well, speaking of tricks, coming back to our battle for P4, Vershaft getting very close once again to the back of Dasunik, but not deploying any tricks up his arsenal at the moment. And it looks like Austin Heffer just not able to capitalise on Vershaft, what with Vershaft being in the toe of Dasunik ahead of him and having to be patient. And it also seems to be the case that Jean-Louis Deschamps has still got Jeremy Debova behind him in the battle for P8 as they make their way out of Stavlo 1, and neither driver really gaining the upper hand on the other, although it does look as though Deschamps has calmed down a little bit. Debova's got within 3 tenths of him as they make the way out towards Blanchimont, and now seems to be into that little bit of a no man's progress zone in terms of he can get close, but he can't quite get close enough to go for the move. But I say that they come out of Blanchimont here and make their way down towards the bus stop chicane, and Debova's looking for it on the inside. He's not able to get it though, and switches to the outside at last minute, but it's made Deschamps go deep into the corner here, and Debova tucks in behind once again. Debova trying to find a way through, but he just cannot seem to break through versus Deschamps as they go on to what is their 47th lap. I mean, what do you do in this situation if you're Debova? Do you just try and send it from that distance back, or do you find a way of making Deschamps make a mistake?
To be honest, I wouldn't try and send it from that far back. And with the power the Audi's got, the best chance he's going to get, in my opinion, is, like I said before, off the Kemmel straight and into the chicane. He just needs, the Porsche is so good at the middle part, the middle section of this track. So, like you say, it turns in really well because of the balance of it all. To me, it's going to be into the chicane at Kemmel.
Well, whilst they're battling, we can see that Gareth Mills having to defend versus Nigel Stock. Although I say he's going to defend, it looks like Stock's coming from on the inside into the bus stop, and Mills drops the position. They're not putting up too much resistance, and that was the battle for P8 in the M-Class, P18 overall. But to be fair, I think Mills at this point is probably focusing on just keeping the car in the top 10, because he would finish P9 right now. That would be some great points on the board for Mills in what has been a season where he's grown from strength to strength.
He really has. I mean, I think Gareth he's comes from Assetto Corsa and never really been on iRacing, and just saw this league and just messaged me and said if he asked if he could join. He didn't have a lot of experience, but had a lot of racing experience from a different simulator, and he's definitely finding more and more pace as the season's gone on.
Well, he's trying to find a way back at Stock right now as they make their way down the Kemmel Straight, and as they come up towards Lecom, he's looking to the outside. Stock is defending, but it looks like Mills hasn't got the bravery on the brakes or the overspeed to get alongside, so I think he's going to tuck back in. He's got the best part of 24.5 seconds to Van Hernacker behind, so he could push a little bit here to try and come back at Stock, but at the same time, we know that Stock at one point was in contention for the championship, so I think Stock right now will have the pace over him. But speaking of drivers coming together, it does look as though George Bland and Baker coming back together in the battle for P14. That's P4 in the M-Class, and Baker all over the back of Bland as they come out of Pouhon corner here. And well, Baker looking very strong late in the race right now, you have to say.
Yeah, I've been keeping an eye on this for the past 2 or 3 laps where Bland, George has dropped off from Matthew Prouting quite rapidly. I think he might have overworked the car and overcooked his tyres a tiny bit, and Mark Baker's just pounced on it, and he could end up getting past George by the end of this race.
Well, I think if it's going to happen, Baker's going to have to just try and find a way to settle the rear of the Ferrari down. We did see a brief bit of snap oversteer on the exit of what was the Fangers chicane, but as they make their way now down through Blanchimont here, the 488 driver is doing everything he can to stay on the back of Bland here. And I think he'd like to get one over on one of our championship contenders as they make their way through the bus stop chicane once more. And as they come on through, we look from Bland and Baker up towards what is Jean-Louis Deschamps versus Debova here, and as they come down to Lecom once again off the Kemmel Straight, it is the case that Deschamps holds on again here, and I think Debova might have been nursing the car for a couple laps, and he's inched very close now as we ride on board the gearbox here of the 911 driver. Now coming down into what is the turn 10 corner of Rivage, we can see Debova all over the back of him, just inching closer and closer. But just take us through what happens to the sort of temperatures of the car, particularly the tyres and the brakes, when you're running this close to another car.
It can lead to overheating quite rapidly, to be honest. The brakes not so much, but the tyres, yeah, you really start to feel it after a couple of laps. Especially the rears, with them all being rear-wheel drive, you can overheat them, and that's when you start to have to back off and be patient and give yourself the gap just to cool down and go again, so to speak.
Well, I think it might be the case that DeBoer's going to have to think about applying those techniques, as you say, of falling back and calling down once again. He's not able to get the move because he's right there, right behind Deschamps as they come out of Stablo 2 here and head on towards Blanchimont. And it does look as though right now DeBoer is trying to think about getting this move done. We have only got 6.5 minutes left of racing for these guys. It's effectively about 3 to 4 more laps. And for our leader right now, who's halfway around on a lap, I'd say we're looking at 3 more laps of Matt Caruana. But as they come down towards the bus stop chicane here, they do have Chris Keenan ahead on the back marker, who could play a role in this, as we can see DeBoer going as deep as possible on the brakes here and trying to go all the way around the outside, but Deschamps says no and slams the door shut. But Deschamps definitely now having to work very hard and going defensive as they make their way across the timeline. DeBoer's on the outside, Deschamps on the inside as they come into the braking zone here for turn number 1 as they come on through. How long can Deschamps keep up this defence? Because surely right now every defensive move he makes, he's compromising himself up onto the Kemmel Straight.
Definitely, 100%. Like I said, the Porsche is so good around corners, but it lacks the top end speed like the Audi has got, and I think this is where we are. If Jeremy gets his corners right, I think he'll be having him into the chicane in a minute.
Well, as they make their way through turn 6 and onto the Kemmel Straight, it is going to be DeBoer looking for the overspeed now as they come down towards Lake Om. It's DeBoer on the outside, Deschamps on the inside, heavy on the brakes, they both go here, and Deschamps will look to outbrake his opponent, but as they go through the right-hander, DeBoer on the inside, and there's contact, and Deschamps is sent for a spin as DeBoer survives the contact, and as a result now picks up P8 there with a very brave move around the outside, and Dirt Bounce also comes through, and Bounce was just behind these guys and had a cinema level view in terms of what happened, and I think for Bounce he'll be grateful that he didn't have to fight past both of them right now. But your thoughts on that little bit of contact between the two of them? Surely that was a racing incident.
I don't know. Without seeing the rest of the angles and stuff like that, I can't comment. I don't want to start. I'm in the steward panel now, you see, so it's a bit. I don't want to say something and then regret it, so to speak.
Of course, no, understandable, and that's why you're one of the stewards and I'm the commentator at the end of the day, so I won't press you too hard on that one anymore. I'm sure that one will be in the stewards room after today, but definitely now Dirt Bounce could look to capitalise on this in terms of going after Jeremy DeBoer, as we've got Chris Keenan hugging the back of him as they make their way through Stavlo 1. Something that has happened whilst we saw that, Navarro DeBoer has come into the pit lane for what is a 3rd pit stop, so the younger member of the DeBoer family having to do one more pit stop. It has not been his day at the office today, and he's going to be in P17 now that he's emerged from the pit lane. P17 the AM class, P30 overall.
I think he's actually got a stop-go penalty because of with iRacing you've got the incidents for the off-tracks, contacts and everything. We have a limit before you have a stop-and-go penalty, and the limit tonight was 35 incidents and he's just hit that, so I think he's actually got a stop-go penalty.
Oh, goodness me. Well, that is a disaster there, but that's those pesky track limits and all the incidents are starting to build up. But meanwhile, speaking of things building up once again, we've got Jochen Seeger who's closing up to the back of Jürgen Nockert here as they make their way through turn 2. They've got their lights on now as we're starting to lose a bit of sunlight. They come up through the hill with Iridium Radion, and Seeger here on the offensive. It's not for major points anymore. It's for P14 in the AM class. It's P26 overall, but they want to end on a high. And we can see Seeger here just not close enough to capitalise on the run out of what was Iridium Radion as they come down towards Lacombe. Although he's going to look for it on the brakes here, but he can't quite get it there. Trying to just simply force the move on the inside or make his opponent make a mistake, but Nockert too wise to it as they make their way around the lap once again. And we are hearing that by the sounds of things, Matthew Prouting has come into the pit lane. I think Prouting has hit the fuel capacity. He's not able to go any further with 3 minutes to go.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've just had a quick nose in to see how many incident points he'd had. But yeah, I think he's risked it and it nearly paid off for him. But yeah, I feel a bit sorry for him, to be honest. What is it, 2 minutes left to go and this has happened to him?
It's very unfortunate, but what that does mean, although he won't be the most pleased about it, I can assure you, it means that George Bland is now up to P3 in the AM battles right now, and what it will mean is that he is going to finish P2 in the championship because Alexander Betak is still the best part of 23 seconds up the road from Bland. Although I say that, Betak has just gone very wide out of Pouhon corner here. Goodness me, as soon as we switch to him, he makes a mistake. The commentator's curse seems to follow every driver around the circuit here as he makes his way now in towards Fanges chicane. He's only got 2 minutes to go. He doesn't need to do anything heroic now. Just bringing the car home would be heroic enough, surely.
Yeah, but it's getting to the point where it depends on when he took tyres. What I found at Silverstone was I took the tyres at the first stint. Literally the last 3 or 4 laps, you have no rear tyre grip left. So it gets really, really difficult in the high-speed corners. So you never know, he could be hitting the wall, so to speak.
It could be, but speaking of some drivers who are not having difficulty and not really hitting the wall right now, Verschaft and Desunik have just traded places once again down the Kimmel Straight. We're just looking at them right now, but they are starting to battle. In fact, with Verschaft, they're holding on to P4 for the time being, and Desunik cutting in behind him, coming down into Rivage Corner, and I think the gloves are going to start to come off between these two now that they're on to their penultimate lap of the circuit, as we've still got the best part of a minute to go, and Matt Caruana is 3/4 of the way round, so we will get a 50-second lap of the circuit. And who would you put your money on, Desunik or Verschaft right now?
To be honest, I can't tell you because I can't see which car my computer's having a moment. I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think Desunik's probably going to be ahead because of how many corners there are, and the Porsche suits it, to be honest.
We'll have to wait and see. I think Verschaft might have something to say defensive-wise, because he can prove to be quite dogged in his defence. But as these guys make their way up towards Blanchimont, our race leader right now, Matt Caruana, who's just trying to find his way past Gareth Mills on the final lap. He has gone on to lap 52, and the white flag is out as he makes his way through turn 2 right now. And Caruana continues his way down towards Eau Rouge and Radion. He charges his way down, and Fletcher has just gone on to his final tour of the circuit with a 12.8 seconds gap to Caruana ahead of him and a 12-second gap to Faines behind him. And surely now it will be one of those situations where those three will be backing off. But meanwhile, Verschaft versus Desunik here, they have got the traffic of what is Olly Waind ahead of them, the P19 driver, as they make their way through La Source. And we see Waind staying on the racing line for the time being. I think he's planning to get out the way in the run out of what is turn 2 here. And in fact, he backs off completely as they now both make their way up through Rouge and Radion. So this is going to be critical for position here as they come up the hill. And we can see that Desunik right in the slipstream. This is the closest battle on circuit as they make their way onto the Kimmel Straight. Now we can see Verschaft defends heavily to the inside immediately here. He knows that Desunik's going to try and go all the way round. Desunik's got the overspeed here into the braking zone. They go. It's Porsche versus BMW. BMW on the inside. Verschaft with a little bit of a wobble on the rear end of the car under braking, but he holds the position for the time being and parks at the apex of turn 8 to say there is no way through. But Desunik all over the back of him coming down into turn 10, but he's not going to go for it here. There's not enough room into Rivage Corner. He waits for another opportunity.
Yeah, I think if he can get the exit out of Puyon, he'll get him into the next chicane, to be honest.
Well, we will wait and see about that as they make their way then down towards what is Puyon Corner here. And as they come into the double left apex left-hander here, we can see it is the case that Verschaft holds on for the time being. But coming from these guys, I think it's the case that Caruana is now making his way down towards what is Blanchimont. But he's going very slowly here, Caruana. This is very unexpected as he comes up towards Blanchimont Corner. Has he run out of fuel? Surely not. Not this late in the race.
He could have done. I mean, the Luxin lads, they normally calculate their fuel levels down to a T, so they aim to run out as they cross the finish line. But it's not unheard of for miscalculations.
Well, as he makes his way to the left-hander, checker flags out, and I think they're going to finish in formation. It's Caruana who takes the win in the Pro class, and alongside him, Billy Fletcher takes P2, and that confirms that Fletcher takes the championship win in the Pro League. Caruana, they're giving us a little bit of suspense, but they wanted the team photo, and behind them, Ben Faines finishes in P3, a brilliant drive from Ben Faines. We can see behind them, it is the case that we have Robert Desunik in the end, who comes home in P4. He did pass Tony Verschaft on the final lap. Jamie Dory is going to come home in P6 when all is said and done. He will be the next star driver on the lead lap to finish on that lap. We've heard that Kurt Van Hernacker has already come across the line in P18, as we do see here Jamie Dory coming around right now, and it will be the case for the Next Gen Racing Barracuda Motorsport driver. This is his best result of the season, despite the mistake. He was on course for a potential top 5, but in the end it will be a P6 in the Pro class, and he'll be be very, very happy with that one as he crosses the line. Jerry DeBover in the end, whilst it wasn't the perfect start, he's definitely made a recovery drive out this one, the challenge driver, and if he's going to stay with the Audi for next season, you can only imagine how strong he is going to be as he makes his way out the final corner to take that P7. We've then got Øystein Hereford in P8 crossing the line. A good drive from Hereford, but it wasn't to be his day today. Jean-Louis Deschamps recovering to P9 when all is said and done. Dirt Bounce will come across the line in P10, and here, ladies and gentlemen, is Alexander Betak, who takes the win in the AM race at Spa and will take the championship win in the AM League. It was down to the wire versus him and George Bland, but in the end, Betak with a dominant display. When he took the win, he never looked back, and Alexander Betak is your champion in the AM class. Mikkel Andreasen with a brilliant P2 to complete his second half of the season, which was difficult, but he's ended on a high. And George Bland, P13 overall, a P3 today means that he finishes P2 in the end in the AM League, and a difficult race to wrap up his season when it was all going so well. It was undone in the end by a couple of mistakes. Mark Baker P4, Matthew Addy P5, brilliant drives from the pair of them, and then we've got Nigel Stock in P6 as he comes across the timeline and makes that P16 confirmed. And then Gareth Mills comes out the final corner and finishes on the lead lap. P17 overall. That is a P7 for Gareth Mills. I believe in the AM League, his best finish of the season. A brilliant drive from Gareth Mills. And that's all of our drivers confirmed who finished on the lead lap. A brilliant end to the season, you've got to say, Matt.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as I've said in the chat to all the drivers before we started this, I thank them all. I nearly got the teary-eyed, I must admit. Thank them all, because this season's been bigger and better than I ever thought it would be for the first season, and I can't believe next season we've filled the first grid and we're trying to get a second grid together.
Well, it's been an absolutely fantastic season. I can see in the chat right now, we've got Sobergrid there in the Twitch chat saying congratulations to Mikkel, who's already jumped to the pit. But indeed, the Danish army coming out in force today at Spa, and Alexander Betak right now flashing his lights in joy as he makes his way through Puon. And Betak, in the end, the Switchback Motorsport driver, must be so chuffed with himself. And, well, the Luxem 24 boys, who we will definitely hear from very shortly, they'll have plenty to say about the win state and also the championship. It's been a phenomenal season with so much drama, with so much excitement and unpredictability, as we do see George Bland just behind Betak right now, and I think he'll be congratulated his championship rival on what was a brilliant championship fight down to the very last couple of laps of this race.
Yeah, definitely. I know I'll probably be getting a word in my ear tomorrow, should we say, when I'm back at work with George about the drop score system, but at the end of the day, it did it that way so that if people missed one round, it wasn't going to ruin the championship. And yeah.
Well, as they make their way down towards the bus stop chicane, we'll just see them both come into the pits, and we can see Mark Baker coming up behind them. And you can see Bland and Betak very chuffed with the racing they've had this season, and we can expect plenty more from them in Season 2, assuming they're both coming back for Season 2. And why wouldn't they, of course? And it's also Mark Baker coming into the pits behind them. And Jamie Dory, I think, has parked up on circuit here. I think he might have lost his way in his jubilation and has decided to instead try to mount the pit wall there, coming out of La Source and getting a little bit jiggy with the wall with that Ferrari by the looks of things. But with that brings to a close the racing at Spa, and we will be right back for the post-race interviews. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen, you won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, well, apologies for the very brief delay there. We just had to get confirmed all the results from today and also the final championship results. But now that it's all been confirmed, we're going to get our post-race interviews underway. And of course, we'll be starting off with our winner in the pro race, and that was Matt Caruana. Hello, Matt. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Matt, congratulations on the win today, but I'm sure it feels a little bit bittersweet right now in terms of taking the win, but not the championship. How does it feel to have won our second Super Endurance race of the season?
It feels really good. It was a great race, but it was really tiring having to keep putting the laps in and stay concentrated while not trying to go off the track. But when Billy had that incident, I thought I had a chance, so I kept going, but he managed to get back up to P2.
So with regards to just dissecting the race, a good start from both yourself and Billy Fletcher. The pair of you seem to be making your way through the field as a pair, with yourself in the lead. But then as you were getting closer towards the front, you started to make a little bit of a break on Fletcher, but came up against a bit of a wall when you encountered the Team Netherlands Racing group of what was Fains, Verschaft and also De Sunik. Just take us through that dynamic at the start of the race.
When I got onto the back of them, I was just trying to save some fuel, like clutch into every corner, and then when there was the right time, just before the pit stop, I try and get ahead of them so that I can be ahead of Billy going into the pits and try and gain some time there.
And then with, of course, going into the pits and trying to gain some time, you came out in some clear air and you started to put in some absolutely phenomenal laps. Was it the equivalent of essentially trying to put yourself into a qualifying mode at that point?
Yeah, after the pit stop, I was just getting used to the heavy car again, but then once I did that, I was just trying to focus and put in some good laps and try and build the gap.
And it definitely worked out, as we saw with your second pit stop, how in the end you came out well clear of the rest of the field. And from that point onwards, just putting in the laps, and I think one of the laps was a 2:15.2, which was absolutely sensational. Nobody came within a second of that lap. Just take us through where that came from.
Well, on the fresh tyres, I just I'd set myself up for the lap because I was trying to get the fastest lap just for a few extra points, see if it would help. But yeah, I just focused up and tried to put a decent lap in.
Now, of course, I do have to ask, when you look back over the course of the rounds of the season that you took part in, what are your thoughts on the championship, finishing P2 in the Pro League and taking Fletcher all the way to the final race?
Sorry, hang on, my internet's cutting out. What did you say?
No problem. So looking back on your championship, coming P2 in the Pro League in the end and taking Fletcher on all the way to the season finale, just take us through your thoughts of the championship.
It's been really great. I joined late, and it was great to race Billy throughout the whole season. We haven't really raced before, so it's great. But he's done a great job all season, even though he's been through a lot of accidents and stuff. But he's done really well to manage to win in the end.
And then looking ahead, I mean, you made the switch to the Audi R8. Is that a sort of sign of things to come, that we're going to see you out in an Audi R8 in Season 2?
Yeah, I think I'll run the Audi next season. It seems to be the best car for me at the moment, so I'll be sticking with that for now.
And we definitely then can confirm that you're coming back for Season 2. We can expect more of your very rapid pace.
Yeah, I'll be back.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. But back to the here and now, a brilliant season from yourself. And one final question. What's been your highlight of the season?
I think racing Billy and Bobby at Monza was really fun. That was a great race. So I think that was one of the highlights. But there was loads.
Well, you've definitely given us plenty of highlights to look back on over the course of the season. Our viewers as well have loved it from start to end. But once again, whilst I can't say congratulations for winning the championship, I can say congratulations on second place in the championship and a brilliant win to conclude your season. And we look forward to seeing you back in Season 2.
Thanks, Paul.
Here and there from Matt Caruana, who of course was not winning the championship today with a phenomenal drive, and he will be back in full force with that Audi R8 GT3 come season 2. And you can imagine with Caruana committing most likely to the full calendar or a bit more of the calendar, he will be a major force to contend with for anybody racing in the series. But we will wait and see. That's for season 2 to decide about. We are in the here and now, and speaking of the here and now, it is time for us to have a chat with our winner of the amateur race, and that is Alexander Betak. As we get Alexander Betak into the interview room. Hello, Alexander, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Alex, a great race from yourself, a win in the season finale. How does it feel to have taken the checkered flag first in the AM class in the season finale?
It feels amazing to be back up there. It's been a long wait since I think it's Le Mans or so. So it feels fantastic being back.
It's definitely been a long time since we've seen you on the top step, but a very well-controlled race from yourself today. It seemed as though you were taking the approach, or at least from what we could see, of just gradually making your way through the field, and as soon as you saw a chance at taking P1, you took it and just ran with it. What was your strategy for this race?
My strategy was basically to stay in front of George and keep an eye on Olly and don't let him get too much ahead. And then I was super lucky when a few guys had an incident in front of me, so I cut through there and saw myself in P3 quite fast, and then just picked my passes cleanly. So
I mean, one thing we can say is the racing shown by yourself, but despite one, we do have to point out you made one mistake we did catch on camera. That was running wide at Pullman with only 3 minutes to go, but we can forgive you for that. You did seem today to be Mr. Consistency throughout the entire race. You never, by the looks of things, put a foot wrong apart from there. And on top of that, it just seemed as though, whereas Waind or alternatively Bland were making mistakes, it would seem as though every time they made a mistake, you were just going cleaner, you were going faster, and well, we didn't see much of you after you made the pass on Mark Baker for the lead. You just disappeared.
Yeah, I was just. I've been very, very fortunate this season to have 3 teammates in practice who are pushing me a lot. So we've, I've just learned a lot from them, and learned very, very much from racing the guys in this league. And of course, I've talked to George a few times, and we've had a few great battles. So that's really been nice.
And a fantastic conclusion as well, because for you, it's not only another return to the top step, but also I'm very pleased to say that you took, with that win, the championship in the AM class. How does it feel to be crowned the AM champion for season 1 of the GT3 series?
It feels amazing. To be honest, I didn't shoot for this when I entered the league, but yeah, it feels amazing. Super honored.
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic to hear. And well, I do have to ask, will we be expecting more from the Switchback Motorsport Racing team, including yourself, in season 2?
Well, you can't say no when you end the season on a win. So of course I'm gonna be back for season 2.
Oh, well, that's absolutely fantastic to hear. And one last question we do have before you go. What's been your highlight of the season, if you had to put it down to one moment?
I think the week at Le Mans was quite extraordinary. Taking wins in both races and fastest lap through both races and pole, so that was quite a nice Grand Slam.
Well, it's fantastic to hear. And in terms of picking up the Grand Slam, definitely a special moment there. But once again, well done on the win tonight, and congratulations on being our champion in the AM League. And we look forward to seeing you back on circuit come season 2.
Thanks a lot, Paul, and thanks for an amazing stream. That's very nice to watch the day after. So I'll be looking forward to that.
That's no problem at all. I look forward to losing my voice again when we see you go on the offensive come season 2.
Perfect, man. See ya.
Take care. Hearing from Alexander Betak there, the number 117 driver with a fantastic drive. And it's quite interesting to hear that his highlight for the season was not today, which I thought perhaps today would have been a very special race given how much he dominated and just kept a very consistent race. But to hear that his highlight was the Grand Slam at the Le Mans circuit, of course, a very deciding moment in his championship, and one where he picked up the most points out of any driver in the AM class, because nobody else, as I understand it, picked up a Grand Slam in the AM class, and that in the end, that performance and performances like that were the difference between Betak, Bland and Waind in the end. Now, of course, we have spoken to both our race winners, but now we're going to come on to our championship winners. And we've already spoken to Alexander Betak, so we won't be bringing him back for a second interview. But we will now speak to Billy Fletcher to talk about his thoughts on tonight and also the championship. So give us 2 seconds, ladies and gentlemen, to bring him into the interview room. Hello, Billy. Can you hear me?
I can, Paul.
Billy, firstly, congratulations on the second place today at Spa. But more importantly, congratulations on the championship win in the Pro League. Firstly, how's it feel to have taken the championship win?
It feels good. I've been iRacing now for 3 years and I've been involved in many leagues and I've never quite won one. So it feels good to finally break the duck and win a league. It was close, obviously, against Matt. Matt's a phenomenal racer, and the fact he's as young as he is and he's as fast as he is, and the equipment he uses to be as fast as he is, he's a force to be reckoned with, I think, on iRacing in the future. But it was great to win the championship.
Oh, well, that's absolutely fantastic to hear, and a lot of respect for your teammate as well. And I do have to ask, did it at any point today feel as though the light at the end of the tunnel and that championship win was slipping away, particularly, and we'll come on to your race shortly, but particularly in the battle with the Netherlands drivers in the end, Team Racing Netherlands, so Verschaft, De Soenick, and also Ben Faines?
When I hit the back of Faines, I mean, I said it... I've apologised to Ben about it. I got no instant points for it. No marks to it. Literally just a netcode touch. But when I hit him, the fact there was no net, it was no instant points for it. It was just netcode. It was quite handy. There was no damage to the car. I know my championship was on the line, but I waited for him to pull back off again. It was a sporting thing to do, and we made the pass after the pit stops properly. But I was confident. I was holding back a lot for up until the first pit stop. To be fair. I knew what I needed to do. I knew I had the pace to do what I needed to do. So it was just a case of not let Matt get too far out of sight, but yeah, not panic too much about it.
Well, it definitely looked as though it was quite a controlled race from yourself, particularly before we had the first round of pit stops. And we could see in particular, and this is something we're discussing with Matt, the way you two seemed to come through the field as a pair. And the only time really when Matt got a car between you two was when you were starting to make your way into the top 6, top 7. Just dissecting that a little bit further, was it always the plan just to sort of tail Matt and then perhaps fighting towards the end of the race?
Yeah, I mean, in practice, he was... we've been pretty close all season. He's made the switch to that Audi, and he's just clicked with it. And he was a lot faster. I mean, every practice session we attempted to try and keep up with him. You know, he was breaking into the 55s, I think it was, and I was a couple of attempts off of that. So I kind of knew once I knew once we broke through the field, he would probably run away. When he did run away, I wasn't surprised. If I'm honest, Matt wasn't my worry tonight. My worry was just to get to second place and then hold the car there. Whether Matt was in front of me, behind me, I just wanted to get the car up to the front of where I should be, and then that was it. Just concentrate on cracking the laps out and get to the end of the race.
Well, it definitely showed in the end, because once you'd made your second stop, and I'd just like you to take us through perhaps the roller coaster of emotions when you came into the pits for the second time. We saw you come out ahead of Ben Faines. Were you thinking at that point, thank goodness the job is done, I don't have to try and fight my way through anymore?
Yeah, it was a case of I knew I was quicker than Ben, but I needed to push quite hard to get away from him. And when he was in my draft before the pit stops, I couldn't break the draft from him. He kept on, just managed to claw back into the draft again, which then put him back onto my back bumper again. So I knew when I come out the pits with that gap, I could just head down, pull away from him, and I knew I didn't have to worry about Matt. I knew Matt had put bolted fresh tyres on for that second pit stop, so there was no chance of me catching him. But yeah, that gap I managed to pull, the extra lap I managed to do on the fuel, it made that big difference just to get that. I think it's 3.5 seconds I come out the pits ahead of him, which was what I needed.
And it definitely worked to your advantage come the end, being able to bring home that comfortable P2 come the checkered flag. But now looking from today's race and indeed the championship itself, if you had to wind it all back, go through the entire championship, what would be your number one highlight?
To be honest with you, there's too many highlights, Paul. It's been a great season. I really love racing with Matt. I said he's had the edge on me. I'm quite happy to admit he's a faster driver than me, and I made some great races with him. So if I was going to pick a highlight, I'd say Nürburgring last round. Holding Matt off for the entire 15 minutes in the sprint race, and then managing to pick my way through the field better than Matt. Matt's been really good this season at picking his way through the field from the back of the grid, and I struggled a little bit. But at Nürburgring, I seemed to click a bit more, and I just managed to pick my way through the field a lot cleaner, which is a first this season. So if I'm going to say anything as a highlight, really stands out, it would be Nürburgring, but the whole season has been a great highlight. It's been great to be racing with everybody here.
Oh, well, that's fantastic to hear. And now looking forward to the future ahead, can we expect our lead Luxem 24 driver to return for Season 2?
Yeah, we're all signed up. As you know, Matt signed up as well, so we're coming back as a pair to spearhead the team championship as well as the drivers championship. I know there's a lot of fast drivers that signed up, so I have a feeling I'm going to be left behind a little bit from the top lot, but I'll be doing my best to get Matt into a position to win the championship next season as well.
We definitely look forward to seeing the pair of you out on circuit representing Luxem 24 in Season 2. But until then, congratulations on the second place today, and congratulations, Billy Fletcher, on becoming our inaugural Pro League champion in the GT3 Championship.
Thank you very much, Paul. And also, big thanks to you, buddy, for your great commentary work and broadcasting work, mate.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure, and I'll be back in that commentary box for Season 2. Looking forward to seeing what you guys get up to.
And looking forward to watching them back.
Oh, well, until then, I wish you all the best, and we'll speak soon.
You too, Paul. Thank you.
Hearing there from Billy Fletcher, the number 38 driver, who an interesting highlight that he pointed out, and particularly that dynamic of working with his teammate, the other Luxem 24 driver, of course, of Matt Caruana, and finding Matt being the faster driver and calling out his success, Fletcher's success in picking his way through the field in the feature at the Nürburgring in round 11. Not a highlight I would have perhaps thought of initially, but now that I think back about it, I can understand the idea of being able to achieve the one thing that his teammate had been so strong at throughout the season, and to do so, where it is the case that Fletcher able to pull off a big result when he needed it, because those results at the Nürburgring were to give him that 62-point advantage, which meant he only had to finish behind Caruana today in the double points race in order to seal the championship, and he got the job done. With that concludes our post-race interviews, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, because we spoke to Alexander Betak earlier, so we won't be bringing him back in to the interview room. And that brings to a close our racing schedule for tonight. So with that, thank you very much for watching, and that brings to a close Season 1 of the NXTGEN Racing GT3 Championship on iRacing. And if you do want to know more about the NXTGEN Racing community, why not check us out at the official NXTGEN Racing website, that's nextgenracing.co.uk, or the NXTGEN Racing Facebook group, that's facebook.com/groups/NextGen Racing. I'd also like to take a pause to once again say a big thank you to our partners without whom this would not have been possible, Apex Racing Academy and also Next Level Racing. If you want to check them out, feel free to use the links shown there on screen. But before we close off completely, there's just time to talk about Season 2. Now, we teased it just before we got underway with the racing today, but let's tell you a little bit more about Season 2. Kicks off 17th of November, so we'll be racing again on Wednesdays. It'll be another 12-round calendar. It will be going live at the same time with the racing, so that will be at 8 o'clock in the evening, British Summer Time at first, well, at least currently British Summer Time, but I believe that will be rolled back to Greenwich Mean Time when daylight saving hours conclude. And rather than just having the Pro and the Am leagues, we'll also have a Pro-Am league, and our drivers will be segregated based on their iRating and their pace as demonstrated in the pre-season testing rounds, which I'm sure will be broadcasting some of those and bringing you those live. And you'll get to see some of the pre-season racing and some new faces as well as some of the older faces in Season 1. Prizes and trophies up for grabs. The specific prizes and trophies are to be confirmed, and our principal sponsors are to be confirmed. But what you can see there before we talk about the entry fee, in terms of car choice, we are going to have the cars of the Audi R8, the BMW M4, the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo, the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo, the Mercedes-Benz SLS AMG, the McLaren MP4 12C, and the Porsche 911 GT3R. They are all returning in the car pool. But there's one car that has been removed and a new car that's been put in, and that we have seen the removal of the BMW Z4 Legacy car, and we are bringing in the Ford GT40, a bit of American muscle to add something into the mix for the field. Now, if you're sat there at your desk right now, alternatively in front of your TV and wondering, how can I get involved in all this? I'm an iRacing driver. Do I have to be a pro to race in it? No, you do not have to be a pro. You just have to have the motivation to race as cleanly as possible and enjoy it racing in a league. And for £20, that is the entry fee, you can take part in the 12-round calendar. And that £20 effectively means that you'll be participating in a total of 22 races. So that is less than £1 a race to enter effectively. It's definitely well worth it. If you've been tuning in over the course of this season, I think you'll be nodding and agreeing with me, and if not, feel free to go back through the catalogue of races, even just today's race, to see how close the racing has been. And as we have heard from some of our drivers, and also hearing from Matt Emmons, we've already got one full set of drivers registered for our first lobby. We've already got 60 drivers taking part in one lobby, and we are currently looking to fill a second lobby. We're already halfway there, roughly, around sort of 20 to 30 drivers, and if we can get that number up to somewhere in the region of 40 to 50, we will have a second championship lobby. The specifics of how the lobbies will be run and how the championship's points will work out, that's yet to be decided, but definitely you will be interested in racing this one. If you've got that interest, then feel free to sign up using the NXTGEN Racing website. You saw the link earlier. Alternatively, message us on our Facebook group. On top of that as well, if you want to see the calendar, the 12-round calendar, we have got some old favourites returning from Season 1, and we've also got some new circuits on the calendar. You can see Round 1 will be at Daytona Road Course, Round 2 at Sebring, Round 3 at Road Atlanta. We've got our first 3 rounds in the United States of America. Round 4, we head to the United Kingdom for Silverstone once again. Round 5, the Hungaroring. Round 6, we head to Le Mans for the first of the 2-hour Super Endurance events. Round 7, we go to the Red Bull Ring. Round 8 to Spa-Francorchamps. Round 9 will be Zolder. Round 10 will be Monza. Round 11 will be Trinring Motegi and Japan. And then we wrap up the season at the venerable Australian circuit. We go down under for what is the Mount Panorama Raceway for our concluding race, and indeed our second Super Endurance race of the 2 hours. Does this schedule sound interesting to you? Does it look like something you want to take part in? Well, definitely let us know and get signed up today, because you won't want to miss it. And I'll be back in the commentary box for at least one of the 2 lobbies for the entirety of Season 2, bringing you all of the racing action in the Season 2 GT3 Championship on iRacing, as brought to you by NXTGEN Racing. But again, until then, it is goodbye from us today for Season 1. This is the end of the season. Congratulations to all of our participants. A fantastic season. Well done to them. Thank you to them for taking part, and thank you to you guys and girls for tuning in week on, week out, and enjoying the racing and making it as interactive as possible. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling. I have been Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain the Spit. We have been NXTGEN Racing, and we will see you in Season 2. But until then, remember most importantly to stay on track. Good night.